when you're lost in the darkness, look for not just any book club's discussion on The Last of Us, the show and the game. Mostly the show, because that's what's hot right now. But we have both played the game.
Mm-hmm,
Here's Pierce, and I'm
We
Justin.
we've both played both games, but this is going to focus on season 1 and the first game. So
Part one.
don't worry. You're not gonna get spoiled for season 2 or 3 or the game if you haven't done any of that yet. We're gonna refrain from bringing it up, even though the discourse seems to really like when people bring it up online.
Yeah.
It's very
This might be our last
we're
episode,
still
to be honest.
we're still arguing about this game 5 years later. It
Yeah.
sucks.
Well,
I'm
stay tuned for that.
yeah. Justin and I both love this game and this series and this world. I'm more involved in like the online side of it, and it sucks. If you like the game or if you like the show and you're new, do not join the online community for the game in
For the
any
second game.
capacity.
For the second game, especially.
Well, just the arguments between both groups. It's awful. But yeah, the people talking about the second game are something else. Anyhow,
But the first
back
game.
on topic. We're not
show.
going to talk about any plot details from the second game. So
Yeah.
yeah, part 1.
Part one. Joel and Ellie. Everything about this. And our overall impressions is that again, we really do enjoy the story. We love this game. We love the story. And we're gonna structure this by episode. We're gonna focus on the show, and then we're gonna talk about how it differs from the game, rather than the other way around, because I feel like that kind of makes for a better discussion.
Yes. But real
So
quick, we're going to try and give like a real short plot rundown just to remind everyone. Maybe you're listening to this far in the future and you forgot how the show goes exactly. So episodes 1 through 4, right? So we have the pilot in which things go crazy and there's an infection running about and um spoiler alert already.
yeah,
Joel's daughter dies in the escape from the
from
infection day.
from Austin.
Apocalypse Day. Yes, Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Um,
It's important to know that
and then
she's accidentally shot by a soldier, or intentionally shot by a soldier.
yes, yeah, it's important to know. Yeah. Jump cut to 20 years in the future, and Joel has been surviving for a while. He somehow ended up in Boston, and he's got a little community of, well, he's part of a community. He's one of a partnership of smugglers, and they are eventually tasked with smuggling a girl out of the city. This girl is Ellie. In episode 2, after they've gotten out of Boston, they are traveling. Joel, his partner Tess, and Ellie to where they're supposed to drop this girl off at the. Is it still like the Capitol building in the
Yeah,
show?
something like that.
Yeah.
Takes place in Boston.
Yeah. And so they're headed that way, and they arrive, and things have gone wrong. Right? There was like some kind of fight. Oh no, it was the infected attacked in the show now. So
Yeah.
in the show, the infected, that's the difference. In the show, the infected
Good
attack
change.
and the fireflies are all dead. Oh no. But turns out on the way during an altercation with infected, Tess got bit. So she's turning. And so she stays behind as infected are running
She
up on
convinces
them, and
Joel
Joel and
to
Ellie.
take Ellie, who we kind of
Yeah.
forgot to say this, that she's immune.
She is immune. That's the reason. Yeah, I guess that's important to note too. Um, she's immune, and so Joel and Ellie are running. Episode 3 is kind of a cutaway from Joel and Ellie. We do get a little bit of Joel and Ellie together, but most of the episode centers around the person that they're trying to go and meet, and it tells kind of this love story, this life story of Bill and Frank, who are living together after the apocalypse. They are it's a gay romance. if you haven't seen the show, I guess.
Yeah, you know the discourse around this
Fair,
episode.
fair, yeah, the discourse around this episode is wild.
Everyone crazy for this
And
episode.
yeah. And so, they get there, and it turns out, we find out through all those flashbacks, Bill and Frank already dead. Um, and so he gives Joel his car through like a letter, and Joel and Ellie take off. Episode 4, we get a lot of Joel and Ellie bonding. We also find out a little bit about the leader of the city, that the first
Kathleen.
city they end up at, Kansas City. Yes, Kathleen. And we basically find out that like they led a revolution against the Kansas City Fedra, who are running the quarantine zones. And Kathleen wants to get revenge on the people who were basically like telling on the revolutionaries to the Fedra. And they meet Henry and Sam right at the end of the episode, and that's it.
How they kind of meet up is kind of important because Sam and Henry,
Yeah.
they kind of pull a gun on them, um, and of course, um, they're able to team up, and Sam and Henry want Joel and Ellie, or they really want Joel to traverse the city to get out of the city, because they're wanted men. Mainly Henry is the wanted man by Kathleen, mainly because he kind of conspired against her to get more drugs for Sam. Sam also happens to be deaf, which it is really well, it's not an important character trait. It's just how he communicates, which A1 for representation right there. Um, Basically, they're able to get out through going through the sewer. Kathleen is hot on the trail, and once that happens, they're able to get out, but then they have to go outside the quarantine area, and it's in a neighborhood. There's a sniper. Joel is able to go there solo, and he has the opportunity to leave, but he doesn't leave. He goes in, attacks the sniper, um, and then Kathleen is able to catch up with them, and
Big
through
altercation.
yeah, big altercation. Henry confronts Kathleen, and then through the probably the most well-timed Deus Ex Machina. This was also foreshadowed in the end of not the
Yeah.
end of episode 4. There's a big bloater, but it's not really just a bloater. Not just any bloater. It's an entire horde of infected that comes swarming in, rendering all of Kathleen's because she's part of Hedra, who's like helping contain all the
Kathleen's
infected.
not part of Fedra.
Oh, she's part of the
Yeah,
resistance?
she's
Yeah,
part of the
yeah, she's
revolution.
overthrows Fedra,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, After that, it's all for naught. Overthrowing Fedra means nothing. Infected are everywhere now, and they're able to escape finally. But unfortunately, Sam gets bitten, and even though Joel was like, "You can come with us," Sam gets bitten, and Sam attacks everyone, but Henry is the one to shoot him, and Henry feels immense guilt over this and commits suicide. I got a catch in my throat just saying that. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's pretty rough both in the show
yeah.
and the game.
Episode 6, they're in Jackson, and Joel has the opportunity to just to trade with Tommy, basically just leave. Oh, he meets up with his brother Tommy in Jackson, and he has the opportunity. He's trying to take this opportunity because he feels immense guilt over Sarah, and he doesn't want the same thing to happen to Ellie. So he wants to trade off,
Offload Ellie
offload.
on.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and Ellie's finding that she really wants to be with Joel, even though like they're not related, but they form this bond. I'm getting chills again. Oh man, this is also one of my favorite episodes. Really
Yeah.
underrated episode in my opinion.
Everyone
Um,
has left me or died. Everyone except for you.
yeah. And then Joel and Ellie, they're so inseparable that they leave, they go to the college to the University of Western Colorado, which does not exist. I just found that out.
Yeah.
Go me. They go there for like
Believe
5
you.
minutes apparently in the show.
Yeah.
Um, After that all happens, Joel gets an injury in the show. He gets hit, gets impaled, and he's basically almost left for dead. But Ellie comes in on probably the most realistic horse looking ever, most realistic horse I've ever seen, and goes, and then Joel falls, and then we get into a very controversial episode for some reason, episode 7, Left Behind, where it's an entire flashback as to like the origins of Ellie and how Ellie got infected and what the circumstances were around that with her best friend, friend, um, Riley, and yeah. So basically, when that happens, Ellie and Riley both get bitten in the mall where the Fireflies were supposed to meet up and take Riley away from her. And then once that happens, Riley's the one that gets infected. Well, it's implied that Riley gets infected, and Ellie is the one that she says it explicitly, but Ellie
She's
takes her.
immune.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's
So
immune,
yeah.
so she has to take care of
Yep.
business.
And
Yeah.
then she's able to fix up Joel, and now, well, yeah, she's able to stabilize Joel. Is probably more like it. Episode 8,
Yeah.
the really creepy episode. While Joel's still recovering, Ellie is trying to hunt for herself. She comes across a nice clan of cannibals. Really, but we don't know that yet. The guy's name's David. David forms some rapport with Ellie, and there's some bonding there. And then basically David supposedly is supposed to seem like a nice guy providing medicine. He keeps on saying, "I'm a nice guy. You could trust me in the apocalypse." Well, the more that happens, Ellie kind of leads them back to where Joel is, and chaos ensues because now Ellie is taken, knocked out, taken by cannibals,
Mhm.
and Joel is now the one that has to save
But yeah.
Ellie.
Yeah,
Um,
she gets captured, and then I mean the rest of that episode is pretty much like it's very quick. It's like Joel wakes up and he tries to rush to save Ellie, but Ellie
yeah,
is like fighting with David because
yeah.
she gets out by
That's a change
insulting
from the game,
him.
which I think
Yeah.
is
What's the change from the game?
Ellie doesn't Ellie's able to attack David and actually kill him. Um, and then Joel does.
Oh,
Yeah,
when Joel gets there is a change, but
yeah,
I mean the rest of the events up to that point are exactly
yeah,
the
yeah.
same.
Same. Yep.
Yeah.
Ellie is really traumatized because David kind of creepy. So yeah, after that happened, they go to Salt Lake. Where were they? Was it Salt Lake City? The final destination.
So yeah, it's Salt Lake City. So they go to the University of Eastern Colorado.
Uh,
Um and then I think they go straight to Salt Lake from there, but they're obviously still probably somewhere in
hmm
Colorado during David's thing.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah, but Salt Lake is the final destination.
Yep. Once that happens, once they reach, Ellie is very withdrawn after their experiences in the previous episode, and Joel, starts to form a little bit of a bridge between them, going like, it. If there was any ambiguity towards it now, Joel and Ellie, Joel now really looks upon Ellie as the surrogate daughter that he lost 20 years ago, and once that happens, they're there. They see Giraffe, which they got a budget for the giraffe. That's amazing.
The real
And once that
giraffe.
real giraffe, even though everyone said it looked like CGI, no, it was real. It was real.
Yeah.
Joel tries to talk her out of it, but Ellie's like, I really want to be the vaccine. I want the vaccine to actually happen. And then, really, once they're there, the Fireflies are very cruelly. They start throwing smoke grenades, and just like trying to knock them out. And then Joel wakes up going in a feverish stupor, going, "Where am I?" Oh well, and then Marlene, the one that kind of gave Ellie towards to Joel, she's basically like, we're gonna have to do basically to get the vaccine, we're going to have to kill her. And Joel doesn't take, I think it's very subtle. I think it's very subtle, but Joel doesn't really like that. So, kind of expresses his anger in maybe some very maladaptive ways, and kills a lot of people in the hospital. Gets Ellie, and then it says, oh, he also kills Marlene along the way, and then he's just like, well, I mean, it didn't really work out, Ellie. Sorry. And then Ellie is just like, oh, what? Maybe. But Ellie just tells Joel to swear to her, like, what you told me was true, right? We didn't get suddenly attacked by raiders. You didn't kill everybody." And then Joel's like, "Sure, yeah." And then Ellie's like, "Okay." Flash the credits. Boom.
Yeah. One thing that this is kind of a disagreement. I don't think Joel. I think I guess we'll get here later, but I think we get caught up in the surrogate daughter thing a little bit, and I do agree
It'd be like a sister
that
thing. Just like
it is it. He
kind of
does
replacement.
probably look upon her as a daughter, but I think one important distinction is that he doesn't view her as a replacement for Sarah.
Mm,
Like he's talking about how he thinks the two of them would be
yeah,
friends.
friends
Like
and all that.
she is not his replacement for Sarah. He thinks of her as kind of in a daughter role, but her own person. She's not
Yes.
Sarah too for him.
Yeah.
Um, I think that that's something that I've seen people get caught up in online, and I don't completely agree. Anyhow, now we're gonna go talk about the differences.
Oh, not
Um,
really different. Yeah, we're focusing on the show. So if you want to
mhm,
watch that, if you just played the game, well, you can also watch the show. We do recommend the show, obviously.
yeah.
So episode 1. I don't know what the episode's called, but it's just called Pilot.
This one is if you're lost in the darkness.
Ah, of course. Really, I really enjoyed this episode. I think it was a really faithful adaptation. We got to talk about
Yeah.
the cold opens. The 2 cold opens out of the more that should have come. Really bummed that we didn't get more than 2. That's all I'll say on that. But yeah, the first cold
Mhm.
open, the very first thing we see, it's a flashback to 1963, and there's a scientist that's going, fungus. You can't really cure that, but once it happens, it happens. So watch out. Um, so yeah, once a fungus enters the body, it's just a spread, and if that happens, we're all screwed. It's game over. And then
It's
we cut
game
to
over, everyone.
2003,
Yeah.
which really well made episode in my opinion.
Yeah, it was so I think the people have been arguing about the point of these cold opens as to whether or not the cure was even possible, but I think that's it's missing the point.
Hmm.
I think it's all to show like Ellie is special. This is a
Yeah.
special opportunity. This is really dire. We'll get to it, but there's even a special set of circumstances that lets her be immune. That's
Hmm.
different from everybody else. Like
Yeah.
it's all to show how special Ellie is. And I think, yeah, one critique I get about the making it less dire is that there aren't as many infected towards the end of the show. But which I kind of understand. But I think focusing on episode 1 and then also episode 2, these cold opens are just supposed to be like there's no cure for this that we know of. This is very
Yeah.
dire. We're freaking out.
Yeah.
Or we would freak out if this happened. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You want to just talk about the cold opens as their own separate little episode, just like a prologue to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, because there are only 2 of them. The one that takes place in America and the one that takes place in Indonesia. I thought both were really good, and I don't know if Pierce has seen Chernobyl yet, but it's very reminiscent of that, where they basically make science to be this very ever-present thing that's kind of scary. And because even the scientists understand that basically it's a threat to humanity, and that's kind of where the horror comes from. And
Hmm.
it is very interesting how he makes science, he kind of weaponizes science to be this thing that we should fear. I think the Indonesia one really stands out as probably one of the more series is probably one of the best additions to the content, the lore. Um,
Yeah.
I just really like how it's acted, and I really love how the scientist just says bomb because one, that's the same in English apparently, and 2, I like how the scientist is saying that, and the military is shocked rather than, the other way around, which is just that's very interesting. I really
Hmm.
wish kind of persisted throughout, but I think what we got left me wanting more, and I mean, I'm more than okay with that. Some people say that it detracts and like, it's just kind of a distraction. I think it adds more context to the world. It makes the world seem a little more expansive in a way that I
Yeah.
think kind of adds to the show.
In in making the original The Last of Us game, right?
Yeah.
Because they didn't know they were going to make any sequels. They didn't know this was going to turn into that big of a thing. If this was in that story where they didn't know if it was continued at all, I
Mhm.
would agree. But now we know that The Last of Us is at least a two-part franchise,
Mhm.
possibly a three-part. They're talking about part three. Um, and so the more expansion to the world, honestly, the better, right? Like
Yeah.
now we have a world that we've been involved in for um I think like if you combine the games, 40 something hours, something like that, high 30s at the
Mhm.
lowest. So, and then plus the show. So
Yeah.
more expansion to the world rather than less, especially in this The Last of Us Part 1, which is really about showing us the world. It's about Ellie and Joel
Mhm.
traveling across the US. They go to different locations every episode.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And also I think now this is just occurring to me. This is kind of supplanting like, the in-game collectibles that you find in the game. So,
yeah.
yeah. That works.
Yeah. They also do that with something that I was going to get to right after this, in
Ish.
kind of the intro sequence of
Oh
not really the
yeah.
intro sequence, but the sequence with Sarah. We follow Sarah for most of it, which is different from the game because the game
Yeah.
just jump cuts right to before
Mhm.
the breakout happens.
Yeah.
But so we get a little bit more context there. But what they do is in the game, it's in several notes. You can find newspapers about how they think that this fungus spread in flour. And so
Mhm.
that's how it got around the world so quickly. But in the show, obviously, there's no pickups or collectibles like that. So what they
Yeah.
did instead was they dropped little hints about like Joel joking about being on the Atkins diet, so he's not
Mhm.
able to eat biscuits in the morning. They forget flour for the pancakes. He forgets to buy a cake on the way home. Like they just
Yeah.
narrowly avoid eating this infected flour that has definitely been in Austin at this point.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, I agree. That is a very interesting way of just like kind of incorporating parts of it. They also
Yeah.
incorporate Ish into a later episode, but we're not there yet.
Yeah,
Um,
and
I
and it
s-
and it shows the strengths of the mediums.
yeah.
Whereas, like in games, it's a world that you're in, and
Mhm.
in TV, it's a world that we're watching, and so you have to give that information
Yeah.
differently.
We'll talk a lot about the differences in mediums later on. But episode one, I think it was just a really solid episode. I don't really have many complaints about it. I've really liked most of the changes they made. Even if like I disagreed with the changes, I see where they were coming from. Um, really, I think everything up until the 20 years point, 20 years after point, things really well. Pedro Pascal just, once he was weeping over Sarah, I'm just like, oh. I
Yeah,
also bought the wrapper between Sarah and Joel. I guess like we kind of want to know more about Sarah, but like um, both versions, you get the banter, and I know the mom's kind of not even alluded to. She's not even there.
yeah. And in the show, I was expecting them to like have the same kind of because in the game, there's this really nice moment at the university where Joel is kind of telling Ellie about his previous life, and he's like, "Oh well, I had Sarah young. He says something about meeting her mom in college, I think,
Yeah,
and Ellie's like, "Oh, what happened to her?" And he kind of grunts, and she goes, "Too much," and he goes, "Too much," and it's supposed to show like how they're already kind of forming this really strong
mm,
bond that she can feel when she's pushed too much on him.
yeah, yeah. She's just basically not even there. She's not
Yeah,
even there.
not
Sorry,
not
we're done.
mentioned.
Yeah, which yeah, it would distract from the narrative they're doing, which again, no major complaints. I really like how like, from Sarah's perspective, you get to see how the world was starting to count down to this, like how they're preparing and everything. Really like the expansion of that. And like the car ride sequence, which is probably the most, aside from the shootout, the most famous sequence of the game. Just like or from the prologue, just like seeing all the chaos unfold from Sarah's point of view. My dad watched this episode, and I showed him the first parts of the game, and he was like, "Did I see this somewhere? I already saw this." So it was a one-to-one recreation, which I think was just awesome. And like, if you didn't need to change anything, you didn't have to change it. Um, and I think it was just a one-to-one creation. I felt all the same emotions I had while playing the game and watching the show, so no complaints there. Do you have any things over there? This is
Um,
before the jump.
yeah, no, not really.
Yeah,
I think most of most of what happens before the jump is pretty well covered. I think.
yeah. After the jump, I think it was really interesting to show how the world has changed. Because first thing we see is the kid, and basically it's very ambiguous as if he's infected or not, up until he actually enters through, and then once he goes through, he gets tested, and later on, Joel is like throwing out bodies, and then I really like how shows Joel's coldness. Basically, he carries
Yeah.
the body, and then he just dumps it. Even though after a woman just says like, "I can't do it. It's a child. I can't do it." Joel feels nothing and just throws the body into the inferno, which
I think the
great way of showing
biggest
it.
thing for me in the time jump, the stuff with Tess and Ellie and Joel towards the end of the episode is pretty much unchanged. There's less of it than we get in the
Hmm.
game, but it's all very similar. One of the
Yeah.
things that I like that they added was the the guard that he's
Hmm.
giving drugs to. He talks about like how they're getting like manufactories set up in other QZs and stuff, which I think is
Hmm.
really interesting and really it adds to the world building and it also I'll talk about that later.
Hmm. Yeah.
It also
And then
sets something up for later.
yeah, it does. Now that you're describing it, I'm just running those memories back. I'm like, oh, now I'm making these connections. I'm like, where did you get those drugs? You'll find out soon.
Mhm.
I also like that they actually kind of confirm what Tess and Joel's relationship is. It's actually a relationship rather than just ambiguously are they dating or not. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, and Tess is
I think
great.
it's still fairly ambiguous because it's supposed to be like
Yeah,
they don't even know what they're doing.
hmm,
But it is more clear in the show. I'll
yeah,
agree.
and Tess is great. In both versions, I really like her in the show version as well. Um, Like, again, everyone in the show is brought down a notch and, like, be more human in the show, which, again, that's the difference in mediums. You're not Joel mowing down people effortlessly. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and then, I was about to call her Bella. It was, Ellie. God, Ellie. Um, Again, this is an entirely different spin on the character because I know there are people complaining about, like, well, because there's some news that wasn't even leaked. It was just, like, people saying, like, "Yeah, I didn't even play the game." Or watch clips on YouTube. And there's a reason for that. It's because Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal and everyone was doing their own spin on the character because trying to emulate something that you already see kind of takes away your own abilities because you're kind of stymieing yourself just like trying to reproduce an exact copy. Um, which yeah, Bella Ramsey is completely different from like not completely different, but very different from Ashley Johnson's interpretation of Ellie, which I think really works for the character and really works for a live action. Um, they really lean more into her being comedic, which um the comedic not comedic relief, but like ups her comedy a little bit, which is something I kind of missed in the game. Apparently there's the pun book, which was not an invention for the show, it was an invention for the game. Then yeah, it was present in the game, which I somehow missed out on. Um Again, it shows her to be very rough around the edges, but, like, I guess that wasn't as present in the game. So, Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal did a really good job in making those characters their own. So, yeah. Um, so you wanna talk about the ending of the first episode? Because like
Oh yeah, I guess. So at the end, they get out of the quarantine zone, right? And then
yeah,
they get caught by a guard, which also happens in the game. In the game, it sets up a whole fight sequence. But in the show, um, Joel has the Tess and Ellie standing behind him, and the guard starts flashing his flashlight in his face, and he's reminded of that night 20 years ago.
yeah,
And so he tackles him and beats the man to death.
yeah,
Um,
which
And I don't think that this would be have stirred up controversy outside of what Craig Mazin said in the
yeah. Did you listen to the
after show
podcast?
stuff. I did not for that episode.
Oh, yeah. Basically, it goes like,
Yeah.
wow, the difference between Sarah and the difference between Ellie is that Sarah is that Ellie is activated at the end because she likes being protected because she smiles. That's still like a really baffling choice that they kind of let in. But like, I mean, I'll take that. I
I
don't get
think
that interpretation.
yeah, my thing, I think I would be fine with it if he didn't say the word activated. Like it's
Yeah,
like that changes the meaning of essentially everything that he was saying.
yeah,
Um it changes it to be like set up to for Ellie to be a violent character later.
she's
Which
considerably less violent in the show. Like, I don't
she's
like.
and she's also considerably less violent in the first game.
Yeah,
I guess maybe that's slightly a spoiler, but she's a little more violent in the second game.
yeah,
I don't. That's not plot detail, I guess.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, she's like it's clear what they're trying to do in setting
yeah.
that up, but like that's not who she is yet, and there's a reason for that.
Because she lives in the quarantine zone.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, I I will say that the show also does a really good job in setting up part two. Like, if you played part two, it's like, whoa, you're catching all these
yeah.
illusions in part two. I'm like, oh, there he is. Yeah. I mean, aside from that, the other thing I don't like, it's like if you've seen the movie Joker, they did that flashback thing where like they kind of go, oh, like this one piece of information now kind of, and they cut back to it rather than leaving it implied. Joel attacking this guy. I don't really need the flashback. It's like,
Yeah, the flash. I really didn't need the flashback because it was the same episode too. It's
yeah,
not even like this is episode two. We sat down to watch this episode at like an hour and 20 minutes ago. Like we
yeah,
we know what happened.
yeah,
Um, and regardless, like I would just find that more interesting if it was like very similar cinematography to call back to it.
yeah,
Like it's just there's more interesting ways to do it than just flashing back.
yeah. And it's a minor complaint, and I guess that one quick shot of Bella smiling, it wasn't even quick, but it was like I don't know, but very strange.
Her liking being protected is fine, and then when you say the word activated, I'm like, what are you talking
What are you
about?
doing? What are you doing?
What are we saying right now?
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
But overall, I was still really impressed with episode one. I'm like, I was hyping it up, like, guys, this is like a once in a generation show. Let's go.
Yeah.
But
Episode 2,
episode
right?
two,
Unless you had something else to say.
no, I just forgot what the episode was called.
Okay, Infected.
Yeah,
Um, it is uh I enjoyed it. Probably not as good as episode 1, but it is
yeah,
very important, I would say,
yeah,
because we get Tess opening up to Ellie, kind of bonding with her a little bit because they're traveling together, right?
hmm,
Um, and then because Tess and Ellie start talking, and because of what happens to them later, where both Tess and Ellie get bit again, um, they, Joel begins to trust Ellie. It's the start
hmm,
of that. It
yeah,
Tess and Ellie's relationship that's built over the course of this episode really starts to help Joel begin to trust Ellie.
yeah. This was probably the most video gamey of the episodes. I feel like this is the
Mhm.
one time, like out of all the episodes, this is the one time the writers were like, "Wow, this is just one really long gameplay segment on like a sideways building. How do we make this into an episode?" They did their best, and I think what we got was a pretty good episode, and especially the ending.
Yeah.
And this is like I think the biggest change, lore wise, is the fact that it's not spores anymore; it's like tendrils and fungus.
Yeah.
And that they actually explained like they're all connected in their own way because it's like kind of like a hive mind, which I mean, I thought I was skeptical of that, but like they did kind of confirm it. Like, as in not like I doubted the news, but I'm like, did this work? And I'm like, worked. Because
Yeah.
in the game, you have you wouldn't be asking why like all the infected are swarming to this one area, but now in the show you might be. So
Mhm.
works.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have so much to say about this episode, but initially, my famous criticism was like, "Wow, I think Bella Ramsey is acting a little bit too much as the comedic foil here." Which I mean, I like to say that it was intentional for her to be a little bit over the top, a little bit,
Mhm.
and then she did win me over eventually. Um, oh, and the Clickers, they did a really good job on like the Clickers being an actual threat because
Yeah.
they be
I
spooky.
I I th- I think the biggest thing in this episode that stood out to me was that they left it intact, which they pretty much had to because I don't know. In my mind, you want to get some action in there early because
Yeah.
there might not be countless opportunities for it later,
Hmm.
given how much traveling we have to do. Um, we get some action in there early. We introduce the clickers. We introduce more zombie stuff, and you really have to sell this like trio in an hour. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And you have to sell the trust that Joel and Tess have for one another, and why Joel would listen to her when she tells him like get out of here.
Yeah.
She in the show she literally says save who you can save, like
Yes.
go turn this girl over. I got bit an hour ago and it already
Yeah.
looks like this, and hers is
Yeah.
just as old
This
and is
is
fine.
what sells Joel on like that the cure is at least the infection. Like to believe in Tessa's desire for the vaccine to actually happen. The one criticism that I will say is that I really wish that besides it being a video gaming episode, is that I wish they kind of had dramatic irony and they showed Tess being bit. I think it would have worked better than an actual surprise because
Yeah.
I know when she gets bit, at least you can kind of imply it from the show, is that she starts to act different. She starts to be like, let's get this cure working. And I'm like, it would have worked better if the audience do. Um, that's
Yeah,
probably one of the
in the game you don't literally see it, but you see the moment it probably happened
yeah,
is the thing. Because she immediately I think Joel is like, "Are you okay?" and she acts weird.
yeah,
Um and so you see it happen, and then there's that dialogue, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
like once you know, it's like, oh,
yeah,
that's probably when it happened. I think one really interesting change in the show that we can talk about starting in this episode is that the infected are much more dangerous.
yeah,
Um, and I think that worked to their benefit later because obviously Craig Mazin talked about how he didn't want to focus on the infected. He didn't want to make a zombie show, is what he
mhm,
said. Obviously, you have to have the zombies in the show, so why take it?
the infected,
Um, right, or the infected. So why take it then? Because the story is so great behind that. So then, how do you, in order for the story to work, you need the infected to be a threat. Okay, you don't want that
mhm,
many infected in the show. You make the few that are there incredibly dangerous,
mhm,
and that's what he did, or that's what
yeah,
they did because Neil Druckmann also
yeah.
was there.
I will say
And
also,
so
yeah,
and so we see starting in this episode like it's very difficult to kill a
mhm,
clicker,
yeah.
to take out a bunch of infected.
Yeah. That is probably one of the best changes, in this episode, changing it from, was it Fedra that were there, at the Capitol building?
Oh yeah, at the Capitol
Changing to
building
infected. Good call.
it was I think it was a showdown between Fedra and yeah, because in the game it's weird because it's like Fedra comes and they kill all of the fireflies and then they just leave and then they
Mhm.
come back and that's what it is in the game.
Yeah. Good change.
Um, Yeah, in the show, it makes much more sense for
Yeah.
infected to come, kill everyone, and then like shamble away, and
Yeah.
then be attracted back later.
I will say that also, like, even though Tess is in a very few amount of episodes, she really does sell it. You really do feel her impact, and her death scene, really brutal. I like, the infected kiss scene. Kinda
Hmm.
creepy. Oh, and then the makeup especially, I think this goes without saying, but, like, the makeup and, like, the prosthetics, practical effects, awesome. It looks great, and, it's much better than I don't wanna say CGI is always the worst solution, but, like, I'd rather see, bad, practical effects than, like, perfect CGI all the time, if that makes any sense. You get to see, like, how much effort they put into this, so
Hmm.
Not much of a complaint there.
Yeah. All right. Controversial episode 3. Long time.
Long time.
Yep.
Um, this is the romance episode between um wow, Bill and Frank. So basically, the episode starts off with Joel going, "I need a car," and he
Hmm.
well, probably doesn't say it like that. That's sick. And then
We
he
need a
just
car.
yeah. Wow, Ellie, it really seems like we are the Last of Us. He tries to get find a car, and then there's a flashback, a very extended flashback, to um this character named Bill. He's just basically a basement dweller libertarian that goes like, I don't trust the government, which he's right this time. Um, and basically, after everyone leaves and his neighborhood leaves, they kind of get massacred off screen. Very unfortunate. It was horrifying. And like Joel kind of wants to protect her from that. From like seeing that. But after that happens, basically played by Nick Offerman, who did an amazing job in this episode. Basically, is just
He'll probably win an Emmy for like best guest actor or something
yeah,
for that
probably
category. Yeah.
yeah. He basically turns this entire neighborhood into a fortress of solitude, basically setting up traps and making sure that no infected can get in. Probably turned away a couple families that are starving and like, please let me in, but he didn't let them
Yeah.
in until one person, one
Yeah,
man came in.
however much time passes, Frank stumbles into one of his traps. Luckily, not one of the ones that instantly kills him,
Yeah,
and like the shotgun traps and stuff.
yeah,
Luckily, it wasn't one of those, and
yeah. And luckily, it
he
was
gets.
also another. It was a man that he was attracted to because
Yep.
Bill comes in, goes like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I'm just looking for food." And Bill's like, "I'll let you live."
Did
But
you
the
say
man's like,
I'm sorry? Did you say
"Wait."
say I? I'm like I'm just looking for food. I might have misheard you. That might be my bad.
Well, to simplify it, Frank's like, "I'm just looking for food, man. Do you have any grub?" And then Bill's like, "No, leave. No, wait, come back." And then Frank is
And then
like,
they
"Okay."
sing Linda Ronstadt
Yeah.
and sing and live happily ever after.
Essentially, okay, if you want to really gross it, say it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Essentially, that's what happens, but it's all about the details because everyone went
Yes.
crazy for this episode because it
Mhm.
is one of the few times that the barrier gaze trope
M-
was not.
Most. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Barry,
Basically,
go ahead.
who's good? Okay, yeah, yeah. Barrier gaze is basically homosexuality since it was so taboo in the 20th century. They always tied it to tragedy because even hiding your love for someone was tied with something tragic. Eventually, most people had to die at the end of the play, movie, book, because it was just tied. Not this time. Not this time because they live a very happy life together, and it's
Well,
wonderful.
and on that note, I think this episode is actually really important because it's they kind of use the barrier gaze trope in the game, right?
Mhm.
Um, Frank runs away from Bill because Bill is so paranoid, and Frank he ends up getting bitten and has to kill himself. And it's never overtly stated that they're gay for each other in the game, but it's very heavily hinted at. And
Yeah.
so it this feels like probably a big step towards like where we kind of are as a society now. Not to say
Mhm.
that bigger steps for gay people were being made before then, or but before 2013,
2003.
but like or 2013 in the
Oh, in
game
the
I'm
game.
talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah. That's when the game came out.
Yeah.
Not to say there weren't any huge steps before then, but I just mean like the way that society kind of looks at it is definitely different, and that's
Yeah.
part of why they were willing to change it like that. And I think
Yeah.
it's really cool that they did.
Yeah.
It seems like all the time, whenever people are like, "Ah, LGBT representation," there's a subsect of people that are like, "Yeah, but they kind of use the barrier gaze trope still." So
Yeah.
it's cool that they didn't feel the need to in
Yeah.
this episode.
And let's just say, another slight tidbit about The Last of Us 2 has great representation, spectacular
Yeah.
representation, probably the best in any game ever. and that let's just say a lot of people hate that for that reason. I'm not saying that there's
Yeah,
not some valid criticisms, but people hate for the wrong
it's
reasons.
it's great. It's great in both The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part
Hmm.
Two because it's not. It just is,
Yeah,
right? Like there's representation, and that's just how it is. And there's
yeah,
not like they hardly ever really bring it up except for them just like existing on the screen.
yeah,
It's great
yeah.
in my opinion.
I thought it was also a really great episode. Um, Frank is kind of more the foil. He's more open. Bill is more reserved. Obviously, he has a sanctuary where he just has all this stuff, and that's all for him. He's okay with living alone. And I really like how it kind of sub- not really subvert. Well, I guess it does subvert our traditional view of masculinity because one invites homosexuality to be a part of that, and it also makes Bill, who's this very manly man played by Nick Offerman, who again, he's very gruff looking. He is into guns. He's into just basically all the stuff that you associate with masculinity. Here comes Frank,
Mm.
and he kind of erodes that slowly, which I think was a very very awesome portrayal of homosexuality. It really makes it work because, again, you're not really expecting him to be um, this kind of homosexual, at least consistent with the history of portrayals of gay people in fiction. Which again,
I think sorry. Yeah, again,
I
it's
was just
great.
giving
I
thumbs up.
think yeah, I think it's also awesome as a portrayal of masculinity. Like it's kind of built in to show like masculinity Bill's like masculine traits is not it doesn't drive them apart, right?
Mhm,
It's not like some toxic trait that's going to like bring about the end of them. It's
mhm.
just the way that he is. It's the person that he
Yeah,
is. And it's also so like it's okay to be like Bill. Hopefully you'll be a little
mhm,
less paranoid, but that's not really a masculine trait, I don't think. Um and it's okay to be more like Frank, regardless
yeah,
of like
yeah,
who you are. If you're gay or not gay, it's just okay to be more or less masculine. That's fine.
yes, absolutely that. And how it ties into the overall story. One, there's a flashback with Tess and Joel. Basically, how we got the drugs was it through them? I think so. Um, and Bill, initially is very not on board with the fact that they're opening up the neighborhood to other people, or not really like trade with other people. But he's
Mhm.
able to make it work. And they're communicating through people through the radio, which they communicate through music as well. 70s,
Yeah.
was it like 60s, 70s,
Like a
80s, age against
code,
nature.
yeah,
Yeah.
over what
Um,
everything means. What I will say though about the scene where Bill is very standoffish
has the gun in one hand.
to Joel and Tess, um the best part of that scene I think is that Joel really earns Bill's respect. I think it's really
Mhm,
interesting watching that happen where Joel is essentially like, I understand you want to protect your partner. If anything happened
mhm.
to my whatever we are, I would be very unhappy too.
Yeah,
And then he like, oh look, your fence is eroding. Like,
yeah,
oh, like this is happening. He you know
yeah,
masculine contests him basically about like
yeah.
protecting the ones you love and manly building stuff.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, that works.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think that was a very good way of just like showing that there are different kinds of just like masculine. We said masculinity so many times in this episode, but yeah,
yeah.
just
I
keep on
mean,
rolling with it.
it's part. I feel like it's part of the themes of the
Yeah,
episode. It's like
yeah, um,
love, this relationship between the two of them, the
yeah,
masculinity of the
yeah.
figures. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that it ties in, I was kind of searching for reasons why this ties in up until the very end with the suicide letter, because these guys commit suicide together. Kind of forgot that to mention that part. But actually, all right, I know that we've always said that like homosexuality is tied with tragedy. This time they end their lives on both terms. They live to an old age. I think Frank has ALS or MS. It's not really clear, but he realizes that in one of the most heartfelt scenes, like I've lived my life with you. I had good days, bad days, many bad days with you, Bill, but I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And I'm like, "Oh," and they die together, which is so sweet. And he leaves a letter to Joel because he knows that he's going to be coming for the car or something like that. And this basically just kind of ties in with the fact that I think this is a running theme, but basically Bill is telling him just like make sure that you find someone to give you purpose in this world. Um, don't let anyone get in your way. Which there wasn't much foreshadowing towards the end of the end of the story up until this point, because if you know what the ending of the story is, it's essentially just screaming like what this is going to end. Um, so yeah, it basically sets off Joel's little character arc and kind of slow breaks down his wall barriers a bit, because now he learns to open up. He doesn't learn to take a shower, but he begins to take a shower, become a little bit more open with Ellie, allows himself to let loose and play the Linda Ronstadt, and you know be a little bit more loose with Ellie, which I think is great.
Hmm. And then on to episode 4.
Yeah, I will say that
Please
I do
hold my
miss the pipe
hand.
scene. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. No, the
I
pipe
missed the
scene
pipe
was
scene.
good. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
The
up
pipe
there.
scene was good. I think it's great to have both versions.
Yeah,
I think this is really good. But yeah,
episode 4.
episode 4. Please hold my hand. I don't think there's that much to say about this episode. They're clearly setting up themes through Kathleen.
Yeah.
For we get a lot of bonding between Ellie and Joel. I think that's great. They're clearly setting up themes for not only the end of this season, but also season 2 through Kathleen,
Hmm.
and season 3, because part 2 is going to be 2 seasons apparently.
Yeah.
Um,
Just because it's set up doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. It's not a flashy
mm,
episode, is what we're saying. They're
yeah.
traveling, for them to travel. And they're setting themselves up to be in Pittsburgh, or I don't even know where they are.
Well, so Pittsburgh was where they were going in the game, but they changed it in the show because
Oh.
in the game they go literally from Pittsburgh like straight to Wyoming.
Oh. That's
And
quite a
and in the
drive, actually.
show, yeah, in the show they were like, "Why don't we have them drive for a little longer?" And so they put
Yeah.
them down in Kansas City.
It is a good bonding episode between them. I kind of wish I know we're not going to be saying much about this, but I kind of wish we had a little bit more of this. It's
Hmm.
to show that I know it's just trying to have the episodes trying to make this as kind of a replacement for bonding time, because you're spending a lot of time with Ellie in the game. She helps with the combat and all that. And this is also, I think, now officially the time where Joel starts to laugh with Ellie a bit with the puns.
Yeah,
So it's kind of replacing that, which I mean, no complaints there.
yeah.
Um, I do wish that we had more.
I kind of,
My one
I,
complaint. Sorry.
I kind of agree. I think we could have gone for another bonding episode like this. Probably extend the university
Yeah.
into an episode is what I would recommend, especially because initially episode 1 was supposed to be 2 episodes, and this was going to be a 10
Yeah.
episode series. I'm not saying HBO has to spend all the money to make it back into a 10 episode season, but I feel like
Yeah.
it might have improved it a little bit
Yeah.
to get some more bonding
Yeah.
right towards the end of the season like that.
Yeah. We have some more expansion on the character, of Joel, and again, the balls are falling down. Um,
Mhm.
Again, I I know. I mean, this is kind of my complaint as a whole, but they did try to use the pun book a lot as kind of like a shortcut to have Ellie and Joel bond in a way, which I think that it kind of works, but kind of doesn't. I feel like there could have been something that's a little bit more organic than literally just having a
Mhm.
pun book. That's just me. Um, but yeah, also we gotta talk about Kathleen before we switch to episode 5. Not the greatest first impression from from this episode,
Yeah, I remember saying to you, Justin, I was like, she's not that like imposing.
which is
And I don't
intentional, but
really
like
buy her as a leader. I get it's intentional, but I feel like I don't know. She needed to be a little bit more imposing.
yeah,
It's intentional. We should say this because she wasn't really the initial leader
mhm,
of the revolution. Her brother was, but her brother got killed, and so that's why she's kind of stepped up into this role that she doesn't
yeah,
belong in. So it's intentional, but it's also like I feel like somebody
Yeah,
else would have probably stepped up and gotten the respect before
yeah,
she did.
yeah. It's also just like I was like, Pierce waited out. Maybe she can improve, and it wasn't the biggest improvement, but
Yeah, she
yeah,
did improve in episode 5. So
yeah.
I will give, props there, but
I just don't get why she killed the doctor like that. I don't know. Yeah, I know it's supposed to show her being irrational, but like, come on. Oh, but I think probably the other big moment is Ellie holding a gun for the first time, and killing a person, and one of Joel's more brutal acts, stabbing the teenager as the back
Mm,
for his mom, which yeah, it showed that Ellie had to grow up in this world, and again breaking down the barrier, Joel having the talk about what do you have to do in this world to survive.
yeah,
Yeah, that was a nice moment. Not
yeah,
nice for that guy, but nice for the story. It
yeah,
shows that Ellie could save Joel, in a way, if she has the right task. She has the right mindset for it, and they have the gun scene as well. I think. Yeah.
yeah. It also shows Joel's wish to protect her like innocence also, even though
Yeah.
he's not like he's bonding with her, but he's not like super bonded with her
Hmm.
yet. He still like wants to protect her as a kid.
Yeah. Uh.
Um I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much it for this
The
episode.
way this episode ends, though, is that he make a pun about diarrhea, and then he wakes up and poops his pants because he's got a barrel right in his face from Sam and Henry.
Yep.
Episode 5.
Yeah, so the Sam and Henry episode, I don't feel like there's too much to talk about for a while. Basically, they start like they don't trust each other at first. There's some funny moments there. And then it start Henry basically starts to be like, I know the city like the back of my hand. We can make a plan together. We can get out of here, and then we can be out of each other's hair, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so Joel begrudgingly agrees, and the plan is to go down through the
The
sewers,
sewer. Yeah.
which I think this is the first big moment of this episode that I want to touch on real quick, where they're watching Sam and Ellie play with like a makeshift goal from that somebody made, whoever was living down in the sewers,
Ish.
and yeah, probably ish. And Henry essentially goes, you know, I've seen this clip a bunch now online. She's not your daughter, but somebody was.
Hmm.
Is what he says, and
Yeah.
he's talking about like you got to protect the ones you love. Like I get it more than anyone. I understand what you're going through.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and Joel shuts that down because he gets
Yeah.
like uncomfortable about his emotions.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the big elephant in the room here is the fact that they made Sam deaf.
Hmm.
Which in the
Yeah, I
game,
guess we could touch on that. Yeah.
one he was a little bit older, and basically I think and I think Henry's a little bit meaner. He's more rough, because I don't think he grew up in the quarantine area. He was just like he was a traveler. I don't think he was a traveler, but like he had a run on the Raiders or something like that. I don't remember. I should probably remember. But he's a little bit rougher, and you expect with Sam being a disabled person, that he would basically become even more meaner than before, but it doesn't really come to that. Um, the thing is, it's a very bold choice. Like no other show is gonna do this. And I'm also all for ASL representation, where it doesn't really revolve around the story. We've seen films like Coda that can make it work. It just I don't know how much it kind of works in this context. I don't know how much I love it. I don't think it's better or worse. It's just like it brings up questions. And I don't know. I again, I love the ASL representation. It kind of weakens the contrast between Joel and Ellie and Sam and Henry because Sam and Henry in the game, Henry coddles Sam so much that he basically depended on him, and then Joel and
Hmm.
Ellie is able to survive, not really survive on her own, but she's more rough around the edges. She can fight back. Um, Here, Henry is nicer in this version and doesn't really have to fight to survive. She does kind of betray Kathleen to make sure that she gets the medicine for Sam. The thing is, Sam's more dependent. Again, he's deaf. He has leukemia that is easily treatable with medicine. Um, so I don't, it creates some holes thematically, and is what I'm trying to say. Um, it does highlight the relationship between Ellie and Sam though, because now it's that I mean I was getting some vibes that Sam in the game was like having a little bit of a crush on Ellie. Here, the relationship between Ellie and Sam, Ellie's now kind of a big sister that loves to play with Sam and loves to communicate, bonds with comic books and all that. So I'm guessing this is more for Ellie, and I think Ellie is kind of I don't want to say the deuteragonist, but like I think the kind of the emotional focal point even more than Joel and Henry.
Mhm.
Um, I like that Ellie starts talking about the cure more. He's basically talking about big hopes about. Well, this is at the end. We'll get to the end later. Um, because there's a lot that goes on in this episode. Um, Also in episode 4, they foreshadow the infected. There's a big bloater coming up, but they don't take care of that. Oh, also this episode opens up with a lot of lynchings, just a lot of brutality and chaos because Kathleen was the resistance that took over Fedra, and Fedra was not effective. So they were like, you know what? Let's replace this chaos with another form of chaos. Um. Oh, also Kathleen. I thought they would fix her in this episode. Our main complaints, our first impressions were kind of wonky. Um, Kathleen, um, having a cult around her. We got like the entire military around her, and her being really ruthless. I still was not able to buy it.
Mhm.
I would be able to buy it if like Kathleen was just like, she's like the nice version of just like the former leader. She's just ruthless and does not mesh well with the acting decision she made to act all nice. I don't know. I thought that would fix her. I'm like, I can kind of look over the decisions they made. Not a big fan of the change. I like this game section a little bit better because they didn't overcomplicate the stuff with just like Kathleen looking at her revenge. Um, yeah, these are my broad thoughts. We'll get to more of the specifics, but do you have any thoughts?
I mean, no, not really. I think like it was an interesting choice to um because obviously they had to have Sam get bit. It was an interesting choice to make it this
Mhm.
like big showdown so they could make
Yeah,
it more like thematic.
sure. Yeah.
Um
Are you
but
talking about the
I don't
sniper
know.
place?
The what?
Like basically where Joel takes out the sniper and basically just watches in horror. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was an interesting choice with Kathleen to make this like big showdown and everything. But it was also I don't know. Um, I didn't really love Kathleen, so
yeah,
maybe it would have worked better if it was a
yeah,
if there was a better villain there.
yeah. And Kathleen didn't seem imposing again, intentional choice. I didn't like the fact that yeah, this is the most flawed episode in terms of changes for me. I don't like how the infected came out at the exact moment that Kathleen was about to shoot Henry, because this happens twice in the same episode within a short time span. The infected looked great. Again, we said that before, but like it's kind of a Deus Ex Machina with how well timed it is for the infected to pop out at the exact moment that Kathleen's about to confront the our heroes over here. I just
Mhm.
like it was way too well timed, and like the way that Kathleen is about to shoot the heroes, and then she stops, and she's like, "Oh my god, there's a clicker right behind me, isn't there?" Boom. Oh, not a clicker. It was a child, because
It
she
was a
says
clicker.
before it was a clicker child. Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, she's like, "Wow, some children have to die. You don't have to kill my brother for that." And boop, karma. Um, yeah, I think that was a very, very kind of a step not in the right direction. Um, and I was kind of disappointed with Kathleen's death because like it was really cliche. Because I thought like everything up until then, kind of avoided the cliche villain. But here it kind of doesn't land for me.
Mhm.
Do you have anything to say about this moment in the game? This moment in the episode?
Uh, no, I mean, I think I said
Yeah,
what I had to
I
say.
will
It just
say that.
didn't really work with the Kathleen.
Yeah, I will say that Pedro does a good job again. When he's looking down and like from the tower, he's actually showing complete terror. And like also they got like little girl acrobat who was able to do all the stuff.
Mhm.
I think it was really neat. So now we're going to be talking about the end, and also I think it's important to notice thematically that Joel was able to leave. That's why he looks at the bridge, but he's like, "Nah, fam."
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyways, they somehow make it out alive, which I mean, I did have to suspend my disbelief here a little bit. I mean, Pierce was like, "You can look over it," but
I think it's like also they do the same thing in the game pretty much, where there's
yeah,
like this big altercation that happens because of it's because of all the sniper shots it attracts
mhm,
infected, and there's this
yeah,
big altercation that they have to escape from. I don't know. I think it's kind of okay because to me it's like there's enough chaos that clickers definitely aren't going to follow, and it's just a
yeah.
question
That
of
does make sense. I can
the
look over
infect
this one. Yeah,
if the infected come after them because obviously the humans probably aren't going to follow them either. They're kind of
yeah,
busy.
yeah.
Um, so
There's so many
I
close
think
calls though.
I think it's like roughly okay. Clearly, the close calls came back to bite them, literally.
Yeah. Oh,
We're, um, but
poor
yeah,
Sam.
so yeah, they escape somehow. They kind of hole up in this motel with two connected rooms. The kid's staying in one, the adult's staying in the other, and
Yeah.
Joel has warmed up to them, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you guys just come with us?"
Hmm.
And so they're gonna journey
Yeah.
together, and then Sam reveals to Ellie after asking her a bunch of philosophical questions about like what happens when you die and do you
Yeah.
think those people are still in there when they turn into zombies or infected, excuse me.
Hmm.
He shows her that he's bitten, and so she cuts her skin, her hand or whatever, and tries to rub her blood on it, saying her blood is special, and he gets infected anyways.
Well, he was like,
And
he turns anyways.
or he turns. Um, and it turns out pretty similarly to the game. He attacks her as she's like running into the room to get the adults, and uh, Henry gets to the gun first before Joel, and he's pointing it at Joel, and Joel is like, "Not me, get them," and he says,
Yeah.
"Screw it," and he goes for the gun, and as he's going, Henry turns and he shoots infected Sam.
And he's in
And then he
shock.
points the gun back. Yeah, he's in shock. He points the gun back at Joel. He's like, "What did I do? What
Hmm.
did I do?" And he turns the gun on himself. And it's this
Yeah.
moment of abject terror from the both of them
Yeah.
that I think is uh, wonderful in a really disturbing way. I guess I
Yeah.
should say, like
And
it's
then,
acted wonderfully
yeah.
in both the game and the show.
Yeah. And then there's kind of an epilogue to this where they bury Sam, bury Sam and Henry, and then Ellie is just like, all right, it's time to leave. And now the episode ends.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think the probably one of the biggest things that me and Justin wanted so badly for them to stick to the game in the show was this episode. We wanted them so badly to cut to black
like that.
after
Yeah.
Henry turns the gun on himself, and I wanted them to not play any music, just roll the credits,
Silent.
make people sit in silence for however long the credits last for before you turn on the like
Hmm.
after show content.
Yeah.
And it would have been so effective.
So effective.
So effective.
And what we got wasn't the worst thing in the world. I mean,
No,
if you had,
it's not bad, but it's
yeah.
just like it's effective in the game when they cut to fall
Hmm.
immediately after, but they cut to black for a few seconds.
Yeah.
So to have that in a show where you're not going to get more until next week would have been chilling. It would have
Yeah.
been amazing.
Yeah. And this was the one that aired Friday, I think, right? Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So,
so it would have been more than a week.
yeah. Um, so now we're rewind back the clock a little bit. So the actual confession. This is the one scene that when I first watched it was the one that was hanging over my head. I'm like, since Sam's deaf and he's essentially just mute, like he can't really communicate. I was just like wondering because this was like probably one of the most effective scenes, most memorable scenes of the game because like
Mhm.
Sam was just like talking to Ellie. and he's like, "Where do you go?" Henry tells me that their souls kind of leave their body or something like that, and then it just doesn't. I was very, very scared, but fortunately, they hammered it home, with now kind of shifting the conversation into, where do they go, into now Ellie be like, "I have the cure," which I know that some people have complained about the scene by saying, like, Ellie seems kinda naive here, like, how did she expect that someone else's blood circulating in someone else's blood to be curing them? She did go to federal school, so it wouldn't be great education that she's getting there. Um, but like, it happens. And it shows her to be very optimistic, almost to the point of naivety. Um,
Mhm.
which yeah, I do think the scene actually does work. The more that I've had time to mull it over, I'm like, it works. Um, yeah, because it also plays into Sam being younger, age down. Also, whoever played Sam, awesome job. It was really good. He can really act through the eyes. And fun fact, it was the guy that was doing ASL for Baby Driver. Did ASL here, like it was the ASL
Oh
coordinator. Yeah,
no, you know what? I did see that actually. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that was really cool to see.
yeah. It's Pierce's favorite movie, or one of his favorite movies.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's tough to watch though. It's very lots of actors who are now pretty canceled.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
lots of controversy
yeah,
all of a sudden.
yeah. But yeah, it was very effective for what it was, and I'm happy to get both versions because I think it was a very bold choice. And they did deliver on the scene that I thought was like going to be impossible to deliver with the actor being deaf. Um, so yeah, after the very dramatic, you know, the murder, I don't want to say murder suicide because it wasn't murder. It was just more like taking care of a way to dehumanize Sam, basically taking care of the infected and then the everlasting guilt. I really like how they cut to Bella's face because in the game, it was just all Joel. Like they cut to Joel's reaction. He kind of looks down and just kind of looks back up. But we know what Joel has seen. We know that he's seen a lot of strife in his life, and like that he's gonna be a hardened man. So it wouldn't be as effective as seeing someone that loses their innocence. And Bella um decides to give a short little cry of help, and we hold on her face for a couple more seconds, and it's very effective. Very, very just like, ugh. Um, and I know we wouldn't love the fact that there was kind of an epilogue or a denouement after the suicide. But it does kind of tie in thematically, as in like Ellie now really, really wanted the cure. Like she really wants it to happen. Now because like she lost her friend or what she viewed as a younger brother. So now she really wants the cure to happen. So I mean, I would have heard what they did in episode 6, but we'll get to that. Do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't think so. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about was um the
Showdown.
fact that I wish they
Oh
cut
yeah.
that scene. Yeah.
Well, they do that in episode 6 for the beginning for some reason. It was a really weird
Um.
opening. Just
Yeah.
like
So episode 6,
for some
it's
reason.
called The Kin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they basically, I mean, the beginning is cool, but basically the point of the episode is that they find Tommy, right?
Yeah.
And they talk about their future a little bit, and they foreshadow some stuff that we might see
Yeah.
in season 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Um, but but the main part of the main chunk of the episode is that they find Tommy, and Jackson, and I'm really interested to see the detail that's not in the game of Tommy's going to have a kid play
Oh,
out in season 2 and 3,
yeah. I
because
didn't realize that.
that changes some stuff,
Mhm.
some decisions that some characters make possibly.
Possibly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
No spoilers.
Um, and but anyways, another thing that I thought was really a good addition, especially for TV, for the medium of TV, is in Joel going to Tommy and directly. He doesn't ever directly say like, "I think that I think I'm starting to like get a new kind of daughter like relationship with Ellie, and he
He
doesn't
says
quite
that
say like
explicitly.
he doesn't, and he doesn't even well, I mean, like he doesn't even really explicitly say like I feel like I'm too close. Uh, Aries.
His dog.
So I guess we'll cut this. Yeah, so he he never explicitly says like, oh, I'm getting really close to this girl. I feel like she's kind of like a daughter to me, or like I'm becoming really close or whatever. Which he doesn't explicitly say it in the games either, so I think that's really important. Um, but what he does say is, I'm afraid I'm going to fail again. I
Mm.
fail all the time. I fail in my sleep. I failed 20 years ago. And it's still, just like in the game, Tommy inferring the relationship that's being built between
Mhm.
Joel and Ellie. It's never explicitly told to him.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's really important because it shows kind of the bond between Tommy and Joel. That Joel was not only able to open up to Tommy, but that Tommy, you can see him putting the pieces together. Tommy is able to understand what Joel really means when he says what he says.
Mhm. Yeah. Pedro Pascal was acting in that scene, just like he had a couple
Straight
just
acting.
acting. That scene's gonna roll on the Emmy. It's just real. Just like that scene was just so good. I was like getting choked up. I'm like, what would I call acting? Um,
Hmm.
yeah, you could see like the pain that he has, and it's not even that. It's just like he's holding back, but he wants to say more. And it's like it's very apparent, and like it's kind of like the emotional climax. It's like you know that like he was basically just like holding it all in, and this is the one time because he's very. I don't want to say he's very afraid, like showing any emotion towards Ellie, but he's basically just afraid of just like letting Ellie becoming bonded again to Ellie.
Yeah.
Which is
And
just
and and if and he also, even at this stage of their bonding, I feel like he feels like, if I fail, if anything happens to this girl, I don't know what I'm going to do with
mhm,
myself.
yeah. Yeah, it is just one of the best scenes in the entire show. Um, yeah, and like Ellie's moment, Ellie's just in this episode as well. Oh yeah, we also see Joel basically having these mini heart attacks. Is it not mini heart? What would you call them? Just like
They're panic
panic attack.
attacks.
That's
Yeah.
completely different. He's not that
Yeah.
old. Um, yeah, he's having panic attacks every time he thinks he's about to lose his his Ellie.
Well,
Um,
it's when I think it seems like to be when he's thinking about his daughter, or he's thinking about
Losing another child.
yeah, like he's getting this similar kind of bond to
Mhm.
Ellie
Yeah.
that the last time he felt it was with his real daughter.
Yeah. Um, Also, I just love Ellie's little scenes here about, like, living life in Jackson, 'cause Jackson's supposed to be this idyllic place. It's supposed to be very serene. Um, and basically someone comes they have this very hardened reputation because the couple at the beginning is like, "Th there are headhunters there, you better watch out," and really it's very nice, almost a utopia, and amongst the apocalypse that, it's just like, how did that happen? It's a very small community. It's very all communal and all that stuff, which is great. And Ellie, I think some of the best scenes is just like the fact that Ellie is able to one. There's one scene when the giant confrontation between them. The fact that Ellie is just like one, she has her own scenes where she's in the house, she gets a haircut, and she basically starts ask. We actually see the scene where Ellie learns about that Joel had a daughter before, which I think was a very nice addition, and the fact that Ellie is just seeing Joel, throughout, like, in the movie theater, just trying to look for him. So, there's also
Hmm.
that too. Um, it also just shows that Ellie's just still a kid. She's very innocent, in this world, and I just think that's kinda honestly, this is a sleeper hit for, like, my favorite episode, to be honest. Just it gives a nice
Yeah.
arc to both characters. Um
And of course we have the famous scene right at the end,
Mhm,
um, coming up fast as Ellie leaves the theater to go look for Joel,
mhm.
and Joel finds her going back to the house they're staying in. And she's supposed to be at the movie. He's going there.
Hmm.
He finds her. Um, and they have this heart to heart where I'm pretty sure I with like a prompt to start it off, I could probably quote this scene because it's incredible, and it's very famous at this point. Um,
Gets on your
and
heartstrings.
yeah, it gets right in pulls right in your heartstrings. I, as with most things in this show, I do slightly prefer the version in the game, but Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey do still kill it. It's just
Yeah,
it's hard to live up to like
yeah,
the memories of something that's like meant
yeah,
something to you for a long time.
yeah. And also, I could see someone in the show who watched the show first and then played the game could say the exact
Yeah,
opposite. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
But after all this happens, this internal strife between them two, um, basically Joel just basically kind of leaves. He kind of sits on the decision for a while, and he just basically thinks about Sarah over and over again. And he sees a girl that has the same haircut as Sarah, and reminds him of her again.
That
And
was
he just
earlier, but
yeah. Oh,
that was earlier in the episode.
okay, getting a little bit out of
All
order.
the all the all well,
Time is not linear; it's a circle.
yeah. Um, that was even earlier than when Joel and Tommy had the heart to heart.
Oh my god, this was
Um,
basically the beginning of the episode.
yeah, it was I was closer to the middle, but yes.
Okay, I
But
can't tell time. Okay.
basically, Joel leaves that conversation. You don't even know what loss is,
Sure ain't your
and
daddy.
he he leaves that conversation, and he does sit on it, but we don't see it. And after the night, he gets up when he knows Tommy and Ellie are supposed to leave, and he says like, "Oh, I was gonna leave before, but I figured you should have the choice. Who do you want to go with?" And Ellie chooses him, and
Oh,
they go off
on a
together
horse.
to the
And
to the university.
for which in the game is an entire level, but in the show,
Yep.
it's 5 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Which is okay. I get it. I do feel like we said earlier, they could have stretched this out to be an
yeah.
extra bonding episode.
If there was a
But
moment, where I'm like, yeah, this is a great time to just, start an entire episode. This would be the moment. Again, just
mhm.
another bonding thing. Um, and Joel gets impaled here. So
Yes, there's an altercation with cannibals who we don't know are cannibals yet, and Joel
yeah,
gets impaled. And it's. I mean, the story wise, it's basically the same as the game.
yeah,
It's just more believable in the show because in the game, I don't think anyone would survive that.
yeah.
He falls off like a second
Rhubarb, yeah,
story balcony onto Rhubar that
yeah,
punctures through him completely, and Ellie
yeah,
has to pull him off it.
yeah. Which it's a bit of a stretch. I know in the game it's supposed to show how extreme,
Hmm.
dire the situation is, but like good
Right.
luck translating that to the show. Just like
No, yeah, it completely works in a game because you're immersed. You're like
yeah,
you're in the world, you're playing it. But in the show, it's like, yeah, he's dead. Like this man is not, he's not
no,
not alive anymore.
no,
But because they changed it, it's much more believable that he
yeah.
gets out of there.
Also, the campus scene, not, well, the campus level had probably what. Now the more I'm like reminiscing about it, it probably doesn't have the it wouldn't work in the show because again he's supposed to be more human. But there's that
Mhm.
one scene where I'm pretty sure it was in this part. Basically there's a guy that with the scientist. Basically this is also to show that the Fireflies have left. And he gets a tape recorder. Because yeah, like this guy commits suicide or dies by suicide, sorry. And he gets the tape recorder and starts talking about his final moments, and then Joel just kind of throws it away. I think that was one of the more interesting and callous moments, and I don't know that would have hardened his character a bit. I don't
Mhm.
know. There's a lot missing in this little 5 minute chunk that I would have liked.
Yeah, I think it also kind of makes sense for his character.
Yeah,
He just like goes through it really quickly to get the
yeah,
information and then
yeah,
leaves.
yeah. Okay. Also, before people just rewind and go like, "What was he talking about?" The weird opening in episode 6. They show Henry's suicide, and I'm like, why do they do that? My conspiracy theory here is like they show Henry's suicide at the beginning, just basically as a weird compromise between cutting to black, like we wanted it to happen, and then
Mm,
it just like and then what we got in the actual episode. In the podcast,
right.
they talked about like it's still on their minds and they're still thinking about it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that. But
And
also,
I feel like it would have worked better if they had done the cut to black thing,
yeah,
because then it's like it's the last thing we saw, and we see like a flash of it happen again or
mhm,
whatever, and it works. I feel like it would work better that way, but because they did what they did at the end of the last episode, I don't think it works quite as well.
yeah. Also, before we forget, there's the couple at the beginning. Um, kind of reminded me of a Coen Brothers movie. Just
Yeah,
like yeah, they were funny. They still were funny.
I kind of skipped through them because they were I didn't like they're funny. I didn't feel like they're important to the plot
Yeah, there
very
were a lot that
much.
weren't. Talking
Yeah.
about things that are not important to the plot. Episode 7.
Episode 7, yeah. So, I
Okay.
mean, this is a flashback episode, basically. More controversy because gay.
Okay.
People, people review bombed this episode because, of course, they did. Um, and yeah, basically, Ellie is trying to take care of Joel. Joel is like, "I'm not gonna make it. Get out of here. Please leave. Um,
That's one
go
way of
get
putting that.
Tommy." Yeah, but he's. I mean, he is basically like I guess he's not really pleading with her as much as telling her, but he is like
Yeah.
desperately trying to get her to go away.
Mhm.
Because he thinks he's gonna die. And as she's going up to the door of the basement that he's in, she's like she has a flashback. And so I imagine this whole flashback in as much detail as we see it happens in the span of a couple
Yeah.
seconds.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just before she gets to the door, like the whole episode plays in her mind.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
but
just
basically, because we kind of already went over a plot
mhm,
summary, I just want to like broad strokes it real quick.
mhm,
This is just we're seeing Ellie flashback to when she was still in the QZ. We're seeing the story of how she got bitten, and it turns out it was a goodbye present from her friend who joined the Fireflies out of the military. And the Fireflies are sending her to another QZ, so she's taken Ellie out to the mall, which she found out has power, and they have a really fun night. They fight about ideology and the Fireflies and
Pedro
stuff.
versus the Fireflies.
Yeah, and then have they kind of make up, and then they kind of it's like they have feelings for each other, and they're gonna leave it all behind and run off together,
Mhm.
and then the infected attacks, and it
Yeah.
does not go well for them.
Yeah. See, okay. This is the episode where there's a large disparity between what Pierce thinks and I think. I think this is
Yes.
personally better than episode 3 for me. I think this is probably the most memorable episode for me personally. And I was actually shocked to see the reaction that most people had to this episode, or a lot of people had to this episode. I was like, "What?" I
Yeah,
wasn't. Anyway,
I thought it was good. I just thought compared to the other episodes, I probably put it a little bit above episode 4 for me as just kind of
mhm,
compared to the quality of the rest of the show. Compared to like an average show, it's a pretty good episode. But compared to the quality of the rest of this show, it's kind of whatever. Um and I think a lot of that has to do with of course I'm going to compare it to Bill and Frank because it's a romance.
it's
Kind of. It's very different because they're kids and Bill and
mhm.
Frank are not.
It's more of a coming
Um,
of age than the other one.
More of a coming of age romance, yeah. Um, but in this case, I just didn't really buy in as much to the relationship between Ellie and Riley from the get go.
Yeah.
I believed in a couple of scenes between Bill and Frank that they were warming up to each other and they were going to get along and they had a lot of chemistry. And I don't know, something about like the way Ellie and Riley
Was it the
treated each
chemistry?
other that I
Like
was
the
yeah,
chemistry
the
was kind of like
chemistry. it was kind of off for the first couple of scenes, and that made it harder for me to get into the episode. I think that had a lot to do with it. Maybe watching it a second time, I would like it a little bit better, but I still don't imagine it would be one of my favorite episodes of the season.
And here comes
Because
me.
and the reason I say watching it a second time I feel like I might like it a little bit better is because I do feel like it picks up and the latter half is great. And I'm happy that people connect with this episode. I'm glad to hear that. I wouldn't, I wouldn't rather have something else because I recognize it's still good and I
Mhm.
love that people are connecting with it, but it's just not wasn't something that I wasn't an episode I loved.
Yeah. I've seen people complain about the placement of this episode because it ends right at the cliffhanger from the last episode.
Mhm.
Um, and the fact that the flashback episode kind of stalls the momentum a bit. Because episode 3 had the excuse of just like, it kind of plot didn't kickstart yet. It was in like into after the midpoint into high gear. Episode 7, um, it starts abruptly after the cliffhanger and goes back in time. I've seen people suggest like because it was a DLC and most people didn't play the DLC at the time of release, and so it wasn't quote unquote essential to the story. Basically, it was just like from they played The Last of Us all the way from episode 1, sans 1 to 9, sans episode 7, and they played it after, and they thought it paced it better. I haven't played it like that. I've only played Last of Us all the way through, and then played the DLC afterwards, and I thought it worked excellently because I felt those emotions, and I felt those emotions in this episode as well. I've seen also people say like maybe this episode could have been placed somewhere else. Maybe we could have cut out the flashbacks and like distributed them kind of like throughout the rest of the episode. Maybe like replacing the cold open. I don't know how I feel about that. Um, Either or, I don't know. For some reason, I love this episode. Because one, it was like almost a one-to-one recreation of the game. It was very faithful. The production design, the way that they recreated the mall, absolutely amazing. I could not have done it any better, obviously. And it was amazing to see like how they faithfully, meticulously like recreated every single scene. It was just amazing. Um, I'll say probably the one thing that I would complain about is like they changed the game that they play instead of the Mortal Kombat 2, the fake version of it, as in like through Ellie's imagination, which I liked because it showed that Ellie had an imagination. Um,
Mhm.
Here it showed that maybe they have a couple quarters on hand, and that maybe that Riley fared better. I don't know, but that's a minor nitpick. They also didn't have the water gun fight, which played that to get that trophy. I don't think you guys are really complaining. I don't know. I think this. I think for me personally, the coming of age aspect really gets to me. Also, Belle's acting at the end of the episode, those cries seem very genuine. It was very haunting to actually watch like a child just like scream in terror. Um, I mean, I was in tears at the end of that game, but like I was like almost sobbing throughout the entire episode because one, there's some dramatic irony. This is the first time we've seen Bella, or I mean Ellie, just like actually be kind of happy throughout. And like we haven't seen that emotion in a while, as in like yeah, and like seeing her just like wonderful joy at like and curiosity at the fact that this mall exists. It just warms my heart. And then to see that taken away at the end, it broke me a little bit. Yeah, I'll say that, but I don't know. I love this episode. I think this episode stands on its own better than episode 3. Because one, it also ties directly into the character. It doesn't tie thematically where you have to like kick. Like just to see kind of not tangentially just relates to Joel's motivation. So, yeah. Um, I don't know. Do you have any? Do you have anything to say about that?
Um, like yeah, I don't know. It just wasn't one of my favorite
Yeah.
episodes. Again, I'm glad people liked it, and that's fine.
Okay. There are people like me that love this episode.
But
Uh,
an episode I really enjoyed,
yeah.
episode 8, When We Are in Need. So this covers David. Um, so David, who we've kind of already announced is a big time cannibal.
Yeah.
Um, he is kind of some people have issues with this, I know, but he is kind of a foil to Joel. The issue that I've heard people take with it is that um, David is a creep and wants to take on that protector role as like a lover to Ellie, and he's a
Ugh.
creepy weirdo. And that Joel is taking it on as a father role. And while I agree, it's not the same. And I have heard people like say like Troy Baker, like the original voice actor of Joel, make it sound like the foil is really tight, and it's like they're they're like two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
Troy Baker might be really bad at media analysis, possibly, because I've literally heard him say something along those lines. Um,
That's an interesting take.
while I agree, it's not to that extent. It is still a foil in that they
Hmm.
both do want to take care of Ellie, and they both do. Um, uh, David is kind of a person who is almost like abusing the power that like
Hmm.
love brings,
Hmm.
that authority brings, that the you know Joel could have gone down this road outside of the creepy like sexual
Yeah,
stuff.
I like to think that
He's
that was never in him.
he was feared in the quarantine zone.
Yeah.
Like he had the power and the ability to really like if he wanted to, he could have been a leader of any type.
Hmm.
Um, but he wasn't. And so it's kind of like a the type of people that like power attracts um and then like there's the love aspect, and that's what really makes them a foil to one another. This like creepy love that the reason I bring up the power attracts like theme aspect of it is because I think it like more defines how they're kind of a foil to one
Hmm.
another, in that David and his love is entirely different from Joel, because he's kind of a different kind of person who's been attracted by this like post-apocalypse world to a different position.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, me trying to
Yeah.
ramble to get through that,
Yeah.
make that point.
They do make David to be more of a creep in this episode. I don't. I do have fond memories of this part of the game. I I never. I mean, I know it's kind of hinted at that David, the game version of David, was had an attraction towards minors. Here, it was very overt. Um,
I
very.
I don't know. I felt like it was just as overt. I think the thing that made it more creepy was that we got some more backstory on David, that
Mhm.
he was a school teacher before the
Probably not for the right
apocalypse.
reason.
Yeah. So that made it worse. But the only scene that I can remember off the top of my head is in both the show and the game, where he like caresses her hand and she
Oh,
goes, "Oh," and then she breaks his fingers. And
oh,
that happens in both. And I even when I was 13 years old playing the game, I remember thinking like, "Oh,
I
he's
guess.
he's a creep. I get it now."
Oh, I guess I completely
Yeah.
missed that. Yeah. Wow. Jeez. I don't know how I
Apparently,
missed that.
there's like a decent number of people who missed it, but I remember from the beginning being like, "Whoa, hey
Yeah, they'll
yo,
do it. Yeah.
yo, slow down a little bit, buddy.
Well, no,
Whoa,
not slow
yeah,
down. You might want to just stop.
yeah, stop, don't just slow down, get
Yeah.
out of here."
Slow down and hit reverse.
Yeah,
Um. Yeah. Well, basically, I think they didn't feel any affected here either. Um. Basically, they supplant the fact that David was teaming up with Ellie to fight the infected with a conversation. Which that's how you get the information there, which I think works in the show. And again, just like we said before, it kind of detracts away from the infected, the threat from the infected. But
yeah,
yeah, it works because it's very more subtle. It's creepy. You can see Bella kind of leaning in and just like being enamored by his conversation. And once he says, "Yeah,
right,
there, there's this guy that was coming with a little girl," like, oh, you tense up. It's like, oh, I forgot.
yeah.
Um,
And I think it's interesting. It's something I think you just mentioned it. It's something they mentioned in the podcast where they were like, they didn't say this part, but to me, it's not really trust. Like she doesn't trust him. It's just she's a kid. she's a little naive.
Hmm.
He's like telling her about himself and about like what he did before the outbreak and all that.
Hmm.
And she's interested. She wants to know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it was very sinister. Like props to the actor that made that really creepy. Um, Yeah, and I don't know if you also saw the beginning, the very beginning where basically David is giving his recital of the speech in the Bible. Also, I just want to clear up, he's not a Christian. He's just basically using the words of the Bible to distort
yeah,
and pervert the words of God, and just basically having a cult around him. I know there's one certain actor from The Office that's basically just like, wow, anti-Christian bias. He's Christian. Well, we'll say that he's
yeah.
trying to form a cult around him.
It's about the kind of things that power like it's about the kind of people that power structures attract. If anything, it's against people who abuse Christianity because there's
Yeah,
a power structure around it. And if you take offense to that, I guess you can. Like
yeah, yeah.
I suppose.
Go for it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, or was I? Oh, yeah. Basically, I don't know if you picked up, but basically, there's that woman that was talking about like, "Did we bury my father?" And then David was like, No, no, but the ground's not cold." Mediator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They drop hints that like they're eating her father
yeah,
basically the whole time.
yeah,
And it seems like most people know, but
yeah.
nobody says anything
When
because they're
everyone's
afraid of
eating
David.
the meat, they're all shown to be very robotic, not robot, zombie-like. Like basically,
Mhm.
you hear the scrapes in the glass just like going at it. Very unsettling, very subtly unsettling. You don't know why, and then you see David just eating a whole meal. I wonder why.
Like a
And then
heaping portion.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
kind of, kind of selfish. And then they're also talking about how they're low on meat, and then everyone's eating meat, and then he brings in a deer, and it's like, oh, I thought they were eating venison. I wonder why. It's because he's a cannibal and eating people. Not very nice. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So so how does Joel fit in this episode? Well, the thing is, this was my weird complaint. I kind of walked this back, but I was like, wow, one shot of penicillin really makes Joel go from essentially comatose, not comatose, but basically bedridden to base to just a killing machine. Not essentially out of 100%, but he's able to overpower a lot of people. Which again, I can lean into it now. I've walked this back where he's basically just like he has a lot of adrenaline going through him, so he's just going through
Yeah.
everyone, mowing everyone down.
A- and I brought this up to you. I think like the thing that they're kind of going for is the like hysterical strength kind of a thing,
Yeah,
which I know is disputed. But in fiction, I think it works. Like it's
yeah,
something that like we could imagine hysterical strength,
yeah.
which is if you don't know, it's like the story of the mother
Mother
in a
bear.
moment of like being
Mhm.
very upset pulls the car off of their like kid or whatever, and it like regardless of how much it hurts their body, they do it anyways because it would
Yeah.
be more painful to them to lose the kid than to
Hmm.
lift up that car and hurt themselves.
Yeah. Also, Joel was scary in this episode. He's just like after killing the first guy, um, you know, it very much elongates on that and shows how brutal it is, and how he's basically just um withering away. He then goes does the same to
The
an
torture scene is straight from the game.
yeah,
It's perfect, exactly the way it is. Didn't need to be changed.
and it wasn't changed.
Um, yep, not particularly. Nope.
Yeah. It shows how brutal Joel can be, and wanting to find out where Ellie is, and again, it's showing how much Joel is now super attached to Ellie. Um, he can walk back, but Ellie has saved Joel's life, and now he views her as not a replacement of the daughter, like you said, just like a- not a daughter replacement, just another child that he's able to
Yeah,
protect.
yeah.
And it's brutal because he does not hold back and he does not show mercy. And I'm like, oh my, he's going for it. Um, yeah, and then we see Ellie actually just fighting back in the cage because she's in a cage now. And they're about to eat her up after having have some really very vitriolic back and forth with David.
About to eat her up.
Yeah, but she's able with her quick wit say, "I'm infected." and basically that distracts them long enough to kill Troy Baker. Um,
Yeah.
very fitting name,
And
actually.
yeah, and she fights back against David, and there's this whole
Yeah,
scene.
yeah, and
Um,
fire,
very very good scene.
very good
She
scene.
gets the upper hand. It seems like, and then
Yeah,
he gets the upper hand back, and it seems like he's going to do a
nothing good.
really bad thing to her. There's an implication there, but we are a family friendly podcast.
Yeah. So yeah,
Um,
considering that he slashes her face in many times
yeah,
with the knife.
yeah, she grabs the cleaver that he had and just like starts
Yeah.
attacking his
For
face.
some reason I was sobbing during this part, not because, I was like scared, but like because of like this is the moment where Ellie loses her innocence. It's like
Yeah,
if anything was before, this is now. It's basically she's traumatized and I just felt so bad and like I just want to hug her. It was like no. Um
yeah, and
it it sticks on the scene for a while. Like you think it's about
yes,
to end, but it just keeps on going. And then the change that I really do like is that Joel does not come in and rescue her. Ellie walks out, and instead of Joel physically saving her, Ellie looks towards Joel and they hug and embrace. And now Joel emotionally saves her,
yeah,
calls her the baby girl, his baby girl. The watch is in frame, which is oh, and the episode ends.
yeah. Um, I actually liked slightly more that he when he made it into it because it's the same effect. Like he still saves her
Mhm.
emotionally instead of physically because she's already done it in both situations.
I think that I like the change because Ellie can survive in the apocalypse. Basically,
Mhm.
she can survive on her own. She can she doesn't need Joel anymore, but they're bonded to each other because they complement each other emotionally like that. So that's why I personally like it. But I guess it takes away agency from Joel. Either
Yeah.
works. I think either is fine.
But yeah, so that's that, and then I guess we'll go to the final episode, which pairs with the title of the last episode of the first episode, "When You're Lost in the Darkness," and then the last episode, "Look for the Light."
I never noticed that.
Um,
Oh,
yep.
look at that.
And so basically, we cut to spring. Spring has sprung. They're in Salt Lake, um, and Joel is being very friendly. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to play a board game? I'm going to teach you how to play guitar. I'll sing for you when this is all over. Promise." And she's acting very aloof because
Oh,
she killed a
wonderful.
man and she's dealing with it
Yeah,
emotionally. And then they see a giraffe, and it's a real giraffe, but the background looks wonky, so people
because
thought it
the
was a fake
lighting. Yeah,
giraffe. Yeah. And it's still a great scene, just as it is in the game. They basically stand there for a moment, a beat, and then they start talking, and Joel says, we can turn around. Like, we don't have to do this. And Ellie says, you know, it can't be for nothing. After everything we've been through, everything I've done, we have to finish it. There's no half measures. Um, which to me implies kind of that she has some idea of like this could go very badly for us. I don't know if she knows what is actually going to
I don't think she
be
expected
required
Joel
of her.
to. Oh, yeah.
I don't know if she knows what's actually going to be fully required of her, but she knows. I think she thinks that something might be up. There might be something that like
Mhm.
is not what they think is going to happen.
Yeah.
Um.
Oh, we also wait, this also has the last cold open with
Oh
Ashley
yeah.
Johnson, yeah.
Oh yeah. We skipped over that because it's not. I forgot it because it's not in the
Yeah, I forgot
game.
the game, yeah. But
Um.
we get a
But
little bit of
yeah,
flashback.
Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie in the game, plays Ellie's mom. And basically the whole point is that we get a connection between Marlene and Ellie because Marlene and Anne are Anne? Anna? Anna. Um Marlene and Ellie's mom are friends. And so she's the one to find her. But Anna,
And it's
right? It's
Anne.
Anna.
Anne.
It's Anne? Okay.
Yeah.
Ellie's mom is running away from an infected and she kind of hides in a house, and then the infected breaks in and she pulls out a switchblade, which is Ellie's switchblade.
Hmm.
And just as she's going into labor, it breaks in and it bites her on the thigh,
Hmm.
and she stabs it in the head. Um, and then she immediately gives birth. It just
Yeah.
pops out. Kind of little. I think it might be a little unrealistic because her water had just broken like 5 seconds before that.
Mm,
But I guess I could imagine it might be possible. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but
yeah.
in my
Yeah.
head, I was like, that feels a little unrealistic.
Convenient.
Yeah, but she cuts the cord, and the implication I feel is that the reason she's immune is because when her mom got bit, the cord was not cut, so they were still connected, but the infection didn't quite take hold. So
Hmm.
Ellie was fine and she was immune, but her mom unfortunately was infected, and Marlene had to kill her.
Yeah. Didn't even cover the baby's ears like she requested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, her soldier
Yeah.
that she brought with her. Yeah.
Yeah. But Marlene trusts is she's a Firefly, and I'm guessing the implication is that Anne was too, maybe.
Hmm.
And then basically they know each other their whole lives, and Anne entrusts Ellie to her, and Marlene kind of takes a maternal role as much as she can. Basically, gives her to the enemy, gives her to Fedra to make sure that she's safe and all that. And
Hmm.
makes a promise: "I will not let this child die." Well, before we rudely interrupted ourselves to go back in time, we're now at the part
Well,
where
now, after the giraffe scene, Joel opens up to Ellie about how he tried to take his own life
Mhm,
following what happened with Sarah.
it was the time I did it.
And I found out later that apparently Neil Druckmann said this is the first person who he's telling it to. We can imagine that Tommy maybe knows, like he
Mhm,
figured it out on his own, but Neil Druckmann said this is the first person. Ellie is the first person he is telling this to. And so he's basically like opening up to her and showing her how much he cares because
mhm,
Ellie doesn't realize it to this point because she's a kid. Kids don't recognize that like parental love as
mhm.
as as easily as you do when you get a little bit older.
Yeah. Um,
And he's opening up to her, and like you said, it wasn't time that did it. It wasn't time that healed the wound.
they're saying I love you without
Um,
saying I love you, which is
yeah.
oh,
And then as they're walking away, they get attacked by the fireflies and taken in. And then the rest happens
so
where, yeah, the fireflies are like, Joel wakes up and Marlene is like, "Yo, Joel, we gotta kill her to make the
yeah,
cure. Have to, like, it's the only chance." And
yeah.
he's like, "No, find someone else." And
I
Marlene
ain't
is
got time for
like,
this.
"Yeah, I ain't got time for this." And I like in the show as an offer of goodwill, she goes, take him out, give him his stuff at the highway. If he tries anything, shoot him. When you get to the highway, give him this. And she hands the soldier or the
Ah,
the firefly Ellie's switchblade as the
mhm.
memorabilia for him, which
That
is
is
not
interesting.
something that happens in the game. It feels like a really like an act of goodwill. Like I also really care about Ellie, and I understand what you're going through right now. Like it seems like you guys really bonded, and so here's this. Um, of course, Joel gets halfway down the stairs, and he turns around and he goes Papa Bear mode once again right after
Mm,
last episode, and he takes out essentially the whole hospital, pretty
yeah,
much everyone. I think he
except the two
leaves
nurses.
right as far as we know. The only people we saw not dead on screen, or there was a third person actually. Everyone he ran into
Yeah,
died except for those two
yeah.
nurses.
And especially that before that he killed the doctor.
Yes, and they linger. the camera lingers on the doctor as he's leaving with Ellie,
Yeah.
who he had the nurses unhook.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, he gets out with Ellie. Marlene is there waiting for him, and for a moment, it seems like Marlene convinced him to leave Ellie, because we get Marlene says something like, it's one of
Bears
her
on her.
arguments. It's like what would she choose or something? Something she
Yeah. She said
says.
you can't save her because it's gonna a cruel world out there. The
Right.
world's cruel enough. Just back
Yeah.
off. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what she would have
And
wanted.
and there seems to be a moment of like resolve on Joel's
Hmm.
face. Resolve in that, like, I guess not resolve. Resolve's not the right word. A moment of like he's considering it, and then we cut to him in the car. He's driving away. The camera's just pointing at him. We cut back, or actually it pans back, and we see that Ellie is in the back seat actually. And
Hmm.
then it cuts back, and Joel shot Marlene, and then
Yeah.
puts Ellie in the car. And she says, "Wait, you don't have to do this." But he comes back and he goes, "You just come after her," and
Yeah.
he finishes the job.
Brutal.
Yeah. So this hospital scene, to anyone who has not played the game and is joining us just after, you've just watched the show or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I will. This is a big enough franchise at this point, popular enough. This will probably be talked about for a long time after today,
Yeah.
and it's been talked about since it happened for the first time 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, get ready. You're in the discourse now. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Did Joel
Um,
do the right thing?
yeah, did
No.
Joel do the right thing?
But would you have done the same thing?
Yeah. I think the important thing is to think, because a lot of people will bring up a lot of different details, like, was the cure possible? That's one I hear get thrown around a lot, and it makes sense to think about that. I think that that's fair to consider. Um, but what I think is not right about that is that's not what Joel's decision was. The
Hmm.
creator has said, and it's pretty clear in the text of the show, that Joel thinks the cure is possible, and so he is choosing Ellie, his
Yeah.
surrogate daughter, over a cure. That's the
Yeah.
decision that he is making. He's not
Hmm.
doing extra calculus about whether or not it's possible, or whether or not the Fireflies are good people. And I think that, again, I want to preface this. I think that is fine to consider and to think about in the
Hmm.
whole calculus of, the show and the
Hmm.
game and the series, but that is not the decision Joel made, because that is
No.
not what Joel was thinking about.
No. Um, yep. And one comment I get to see thrown around everywhere is like the world took everything from Joel, so now Joel takes everything from the world. Um,
Yep.
yeah. Um, if-
And I think it's also important to mention that, like, there are people all over this debate. I'm just speaking to the people who are new to this community.
Mhm.
There are people all over this debate, all over the spectrum. There are very few people who dislike Joel because of what he did. Um,
Everyone understands him, at least.
yeah, yeah. 99% of people understand why he did it, even if they think that he was wrong for
Hmm.
making that choice based on what he believed. Um, and that's really the point of The Last of Us. It's this understanding, this
Yeah.
empathy. Um,
Yeah. And how love conquers all, and that's not always a good thing.
yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love Joel, and lots of. I'm not gonna say what I would do. I think that, that's really
Yeah.
personal to you. Like,
Yeah.
would you go through with what Joel did? But I think the important thing is that we all 100% understand why he did it.
Hmm. Yeah. And we could talk about the ending as like the epilogue to this because I also think that's really important. So basically, as they're driving the car, Joel obviously starts spouting a bunch of lies. It's like the story doesn't add up. He's just like, "Oh, yeah, there are a lot of people like you." We don't actually know that for sure in the show. In the game, maybe there are. I don't know.
In the game, okay, so this is another thing I've seen thrown around. In the game, there's a thing where they're talking about like being able to replicate immunity in animals and like being able to replicate that, but I don't I'm pretty I'd have to take another look at it. I remember doing a lot of searching around because I thought there was a
Yeah.
collectible that said immunity existed in humans, like besides Ellie. I could not find it. I do not think it exists. I remember distinctly watching a video like right after the game
Hmm.
came out where someone said it did, and I think that's where it comes from, if I'm
Hmm.
being honest. I think that we all Mandela affected ourselves into
Yeah.
thinking that there's a collectible in the game that
Yeah.
says there are more affected people, but there's not. She's the only infected person as far as we know in universe.
Yeah. Um. So basically, Joel's like, "Yeah, there are a lot of people like you. They didn't give back your clothes. Oh, they're raiders. They're raiders. Everyone died. Don't start looking for them." And then
Yeah, it's definitely less of a watertight lie in the show than in the game. Like it's not watertight in the game either, but like it feels like he's making it up on the spot in the
yeah,
show.
I don't think Joel's a good liar.
No.
No, but yeah, after they got off, and this is almost one for one in the game. Basically after they arrive wherever, basically, Joel, Ellie is able to get her clothes back. I don't know where. I
Well, they
Yeah.
stole some
Oh, they
or
stole some. Okay.
stole they looted some from
Okay.
whatever.
That fit her perfectly.
Yeah.
Um, I see Jackson. Well, while they're going to Jackson, Joel is basically like, "Yeah, you would have liked Sarah. Sarah was, you're funny, and Sarah would have gotten along with you." And Ellie's still contemplating about it. She doesn't know whether to believe Joel. Well, she knows that Joel's kind of lying. Um, but at the end, Ellie is just saying, "I killed um someone. No, I killed something about like her really emphatically just saying
She does
the kid.
mention
Yeah,
Riley's
Riley.
name. She's like all the people who died and everything I went through, everything we went through together. I need you to like swear to me that
Yeah.
it's all true because otherwise you took this away after everything we went through to get to it.
Mhm. And then Joel's like, okay. And then Ellie has a long pause as she's like, choosing to whether or not she wants to believe the lie. She ultimately says, okay, smash to
Yeah.
black music,
Yeah.
and now
He said, yeah, he's like, I swear.
I
Yeah.
swear.
Um
Great ending.
yeah, no, it is great. I especially really love like these last couple of episodes. Obviously, especially kind of the end of the university thing, and especially this episode, the beginning and the end. I remember seeing online people who don't like the show talking about Pedro Pascal being kind of flat in the show. I completely disagree.
Like the
There is
complete
a
opposite.
clear difference between the Joel we see acting just going like total dad mode in the last like in this last walk where he's talking about he's like oh Sarah was funny, not to say you're not funny. And like
Yeah,
that kind of a thing, like total like dad humor and
yeah,
comment. From that, he's a completely different person from who he was in episode 1 and 2.
yeah.
Um, and you can really tell like what he's feeling just from the rhythm of his speech, the way that he's talking to her, his tone,
Hmm.
what he's saying. Obviously, like
Yeah,
he's Pedro Pascal is really great.
yeah. Also, I mean, so far at the time recording, pretty good human being. Like one of the
Yeah.
few celebrities I'm like, yeah. Um, but yeah, episode 9. Okay, well, let's review the episode before we, kind of wrap up our thoughts.
Mm.
I know the big complaint. I was like, music. Uh,
Yes. You posted a
okay,
TikTok about this and it got
and
like
scroll
almost 1,000 views and like 5
5
likes.
likes. Follow us on our TikTok, by the way, at not just any pod. Um,
Yeah.
so basically, the one directorial choice I didn't find myself agreeing with, and this is kind of the difference between mediums. I don't know if they tried to translate this correctly. I don't even know how you played it. So basically, um, after Joel makes his decision to shoot down the hospital, tragic music plays and drowns out the sound. And I Pierce, like how I interpreted initially was basically like it's just talking about how this decision was um that not wrong, but like him killing everyone, it's sad, and like this heartbreak from the decision to like start killing people. And I don't know. I said it was like, wow, this is just telling you that it's wrong, and then how it's throwing away the cure. And what was your reaction or your interpretation?
It was I didn't really feel that way. I felt like it was how do I want to put this? I felt like it was really not the music kind of like helped to fade everything into the background,
Mm,
right? Like the only thing you could hear was the music. And so it was kind of a callback to like Joel freaking out and not knowing what
hmm
to do in moments where Ellie was in danger.
hmm
And so it made his action really stand out. I don't think it was making a moral judgment outside of the fact that he was killing a bunch of people to do it.
hmm
Um, his action and his decision was the thing that stood out the most, and I mean that's the point of this whole scene, his
Yeah.
decision. Um, and so I think like just in translating it from the game, like they had to make a decision of how to do it, and I felt like this was a pretty good decision. I was watching the last episode. I didn't watch the whole season with this person, but I watched the last episode with someone who'd never played the game before, and she's one of the people who like talk a little bit during media, and
hmm
so she didn't talk a lot, but she made like minor comments here or there. But once we got to the hospital, she was silent the whole time. It was really effective for her, I could tell.
hmm
And so that's kind of like I feel like we're kind of looking at it from people who played the games.
hmm
People who.
See, when I play the game, and this is the difference between mediums. Like, there's no way for you to recreate this. Basically, when I played the game, after Joel shoots the guy, I'm like, oh, I didn't expect that. And then it cuts to like, oh, this is a level, and I didn't know what to think at the time. I was like, wow, they're gonna kill Ellie like that, and then you actually have to play as Joel. I was like, I don't want to hurt anybody, and now everyone's coming after me. And every time I was going through the level, I was like, oh my god, I'm killing these people that they want to do the right thing in my eyes. I'm like, oh no. Oh no, what am I doing? And I tried to do it as
Mhm.
non-lethally as possible. That was not possible because I kept on killing people. I felt really bad. And then when we got to the doctor, when we got to the surgical room, I was
You
very.
also get the best gun in the game at that point.
Was it the flamethrower? I don't even know what it was.
No, the like assault rifle, the like
Oh,
M4, whatever.
yeah,
It's like one of the best guns in the game, and you're
yeah.
like, I'm gonna not use this.
Yeah, I was trying so hard to refrain from it because I just saw these people. Now I know that the Fireflies are very not maybe the most righteous people, but like they did something they were believing in. The vaccine, whether you like it or not, is a very noble thing to create. And I love how the game treats this as another level. It's not, what I took complaint with, it's not playing tragic music. It's treating it as another level, and it's up to you to decide if you want to do this non-lethally, or if you think this is wrong or right, and you want to start killing everyone. Um, that's the thing that I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna treat this as a morally unambiguous thing. And then once you
Well,
get to the,
what you're saying, I do get it, but it
Mhm,
also kind of doesn't completely match up for me because I think this big epic moment where they play music in the background in the game is after he picks up Ellie and is
yeah,
running, and I remember it being this like
yeah, I know it
very
was that,
epic
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
So I do get it, but I also don't think that I
There's
don't
no
think it would
way,
have
yeah,
worked if they played this like epic music in the background of that whole hospital level.
yeah,
So I think
yeah,
it's just a question of mediums, like
yeah.
like we were saying.
Yeah, especially apparent in the difference between mediums. It's like there's this one doctor at the end. Again, very important doctor. They make you kill him. But I really didn't want to do it because I'm like a brain surgeon. There's not many of those in the apocalypse because they were all in the hospital when that happened. I'm like, oh no. So I tried to get through him and I couldn't do it. So when you go up to him, I thought Joel was gonna push this guy out of the way. Press triangle. He grabs a scalpel and stabs him in the neck. I'm like, oh my god, he just killed someone like that brutally. Takes away the agency from the player in a very good way, as in to like shock them. and he takes Ellie, and I'm still like, I understand what's happening. I don't like how it's going down. And he picks up Ellie, goes down the hospital, calls her baby girl, all that stuff. And again, it was
Yeah.
just the same. Um, I don't know. It was just
and
very
and
shocking.
and this again, I think, is a question of mediums as well, because in the game that's super shocking because it's not what you expect Joel to
Yeah.
do. It's taking that you want to make a decision on how to best approach
Mhm.
this confrontation, kind of like you've been able to do the entire game, like you've been able to stealth or shoot or
Yeah.
however you wanted to do it, or melee. Um, and then you get here, and it's like, okay, well, this guy's not attacking me. I should just be able to like walk around him, right? And
Yeah.
then Joel, instead of even just like knocking him out, he brutally kills this guy by taking his own scalpel out of his hand. But in
Yeah.
the show, we've just had a montage of Joel being very violent and
Yeah.
killing people. And so when he gets into the operation room and he just like he looks at him and he's like
Yeah.
he's I forget exactly what he says, but it amounts to
Like,
like get out of my way, like help me get her up. Um and he doesn't even think about it. You can see his face. There's no thoughts. He just
yeah.
cold-blooded shoots him.
Yeah. It would not make sense for Pedro Pascal to walk up to him with the gun and like, I don't want to do this and stab him. So
Mhm.
yeah, like that makes more sense in the show. But yeah. So I don't know. I feel like yeah, I just found it a little bit stronger in the game, and
Mhm.
I think that kind of wraps up the game. I don't want to give my opinion on what I would be doing because I don't know. I mean, you saw how I tried to play this, so I like kind of gives
Yeah.
hints as to like what I was trying to do. But
And we can also, I feel like if we talk about what we would prefer to do over just like did we prefer the game version more or the other version, it's kind of getting into the weeds a little bit because like
this episode's
we're
long enough.
probably yeah, that too, and we're probably not going to get another version of this. Like these are the versions we have to live
Yeah,
with, you know what I mean? So these
the VR version.
the VR adaptation. I would love to get a VR adaptation of like every good game for the last like 30 years or whatever.
Seeing make
That's
that happen.
possible. That's possible. Not obviously you don't need to turn like a 2D game into a VR. Anyways, not the point. But yeah, Last of Us Part 1, Season 1. Part
Season 2
1
is
is a perfect
announced.
yes. Part 1, the video game is a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. It's not a super innovative game in terms of gameplay or anything, but I think
Okay.
it is um, the story transcends
Yeah.
basically, and the performances really add to that.
Hmm.
Um, the show for me probably like an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10.
Okay.
I I could very easily see somebody giving it a 10. And I don't like obviously a 9 is great. Like I don't
Yeah.
want anyone to be like, "Oh, it's, you just I loved it still. It was
Hmm.
really good. And I'm looking forward to season 2. But it's just it's I played the game first. I could definitely see someone watching the show first give it like thinking, "Oh, that was amazing," and giving that a 10. And then going over to the game and being like, "Oh, I liked the way Pedro Pascal did this a little bit better."
Yeah.
So it might
They
just
come in
be
with a certain bias. Yeah.
right. It might just be a bias of like, this is the version of the story that I experienced and lived with for years
Hmm.
before this came along.
Yeah. My take on it. Game very strong 9 out of 10. I'm looking to replay it. It could be bumped to a 10 out of 10 because it's coming out to PC thanks to the show kind of boosting
Mhm.
popularity. Um, Great game. And if you're gonna adapt a game into a television show, this is it because like this tried to recreate, not recreate, but like make it a very cinematic game, and it translated it very well um, to the show, which I I like it a little bit less than Pierce. I'm giving it around a 7 or 8. Probably an 8. Um, I just
That's why I kind of did 8.5 because I was
yeah.
like, I don't think it's super a 9.
Thanks, Kathleen.
I could go down. Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. I could probably go down to an 8. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
still very good in
Yeah.
terms of TV shows, and a few of the episodes really do,
Stand out,
I
yeah.
would say, transcend the like 8 out of 10 to be
Yeah,
like
exactly.
9 or even a 10 out of 10. But the show in total is it's not perfect.
Yeah. For me, again, not enough time. I think this was kind of the main complaint. Not enough. Not like there needed to be 1 or 2 more episodes. That was the main complaint. That was like consistent across everyone, and like, it's not as big of a detriment as as people are making out to be. Like it's too short. It's just like they could have been 1 or 2 more episodes. I
Mhm.
mean, it's a fair
Yeah.
criticism. Or the episodes could have been
Uh,
longer.
There are definitely fair criticisms of this
Yeah.
series. What I will warn people who are just getting into it is be careful. There are people who just hate this series. There are a lot of people who loved the first game and have just their emotions are running wild and they now
Yeah.
hate this series. There are people
Yeah.
like there were people in the Last of Us 2 subreddit who were like preying on the show's downfall because
Yeah.
they didn't like the series anymore cuz part
Yeah.
2 they didn't enjoy as much.
Yeah.
It's very sad life these people live, these
Yeah.
haters.
But okay, if you think that you're, very low on the social ladder, just be glad that you're not, sub to r/Last of Us 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, we live in good.
just be glad you don't spend your time hating for no reason.
Yeah, or making death
Like it like
faking death
yeah, we're
threats.
making yeah, oh my god.
Oh,
Be
um,
glad you spend your time talking
watching our
and thinking
podcast.
and talking and thinking and listening to a podcast about things you enjoy instead of
Yeah.
things that you hate.
Main criticism number 2, I think this is also kinda universal, and this is one kinda agree with. Um, Lack of infected in the second half, just like it's a
Yeah.
fair criticism. It
It
overcorrects
made that
itself.
threat yes, it made that threat kind of fade into the background. And
Yeah.
like in totality, yes, we've seen the infected, we know they're dangerous, but having them in a little bit of the last few episodes, I think would have been great. I I I I think it honestly would have been really good to maybe extend this last episode a little bit more
Yeah, it
and
was
maybe
very
have an
quick.
infected encounter in it because that is what leads into Joel and Ellie getting ambushed and being taken to the hospital. They're
Mhm.
actually getting away from some infected and they
Yeah.
fall in some water and stuff and
Yeah.
some other stuff happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would have been good to have in
Mhm.
one of these last couple episodes.
Yeah. They do try to cheat with the, as in, like, I know you're supposed to bond with Ellie. This is like a twofer. Like, you're supposed to bond with Ellie because she kinda helps you in combat. She gives you pointers, not with the just the fact that the hunters and they kinda try to have a shortcut with the pun book. Not much of an impact for me personally, just but, like, I mean, it's there, and Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal bonded. Third main
Mm.
criticism is that, seems like every episode kinda revolved around people teaching Joel a lesson about love. And I know that was kind of in the game, but it was, like, made way more blunt in the show, and it's kinda weird to say that the game is more subtle in the show, and, like, teaching Joel a lesson about how love, can corrupt not kinda corrupt you, but, like, how you need to persevere through love or something like that. Yeah.
How important love is and
Yeah.
how love can be can help you, can like
Yeah,
fix
and then
you.
the
I'm thinking about
apocalypse.
Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
It's very blunt in the show, but, I mean, some
yeah.
people like the themes very overt. Sometimes I do. I like to be told what to think, but in
Yeah.
the game, it just it's more subtle and it's more tasteful. Um,
Like the thing is I a lot of these criticisms do come from a really good place, but I think people take them too far is my
yeah,
issue with it. I think one criticism that I've heard that I actually kind of agree with is that the show could have benefited from a couple more episodes.
yeah,
And like I said, I think I've seen people take that criticism too far, but it really could have. Like I think
yeah,
like if it, with a few more episodes, maybe you have some more infected encounters, even just like one or two, I think would have
yeah.
been
At least near the end.
perfect. Right.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
would have been perfect. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
I don't have any more criticisms. That rounded out to 3 perfectly. Those are, like, my big overall criticisms about the show that were consistent. But other than that, I'm awaiting season 2 and the backlash that everyone will be involved because we're getting into some crazy discourse that will now not only be centered online for with video games, but now with every household in America. Because oh
yeah.
boy.
Every household in America. Yeah. Just so you're aware, so you know what we're talking about, The Last of Us Part 1 is the happy part, and Part 2 is the not happy part.
Yeah,
So if you were one of those people who got really sad during part one, just be aware that was the happy part. That was
yeah,
that was all sunshine and rainbows, and we're gonna
and
go to part
giraffes.
two and giraffes, and we're gonna go to part two, and it's gonna be whatever the opposite of that is, but like bad
Tenfold. And tenfold.
tenfold. Yeah, yeah. Everything that made you sad in part one, part two is sad times 10. So
For 2 seasons.
yeah, yeah. So be ready, be prepared, have a box of tissues on hand, because I'm sure they're gonna hammer some of these sad parts home
Yeah.
in a show format.
Yeah. Wear
And
your helmet because you are gonna brace yourself for some crazy people that just like
get oh
it's like,
yeah,
oh my god.
you might
Yeah.
want to log off for a while when this season comes out. You might want to log off when like a release date gets announced, because
Because
the
spoilers, but
people
not
who
spoilers
hate
are
it
the
are
least
gonna
of your
drop
worries.
spoilers. Yeah, people who hate it are gonna drop spoilers like crazy. Anyways, it's
Good
really
luck.
good. I can promise you that, even though a lot of people, it's kind of controversial, but we here on the show believe that it is good. So,
Yeah.
and I also, I think for the TV show format, they might make some things that people might appreciate a little bit better in TV than they did in a game. Anyhow, that's the end. So if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like, a follow, a rating, subscribe, whatever it is. We'd really appreciate it. You can find us on Twitter and on TikTok at Not Just Any Pod. We post information relating to our
Yeah, we've
podcast
posted
as
a
well
lot
as
of Last of Us
memes.
content.
We have been posting a lot of Last of Us content, but season one's over, so that we won't post any more for a while.
Maybe in season
Probably,
2 because we don't want the
probably.
internet to be angry at us, but who
Mhm.
knows?
Um, and yeah, join us next week for
Post-apocalypse literature.
post-apocalypse month. Yeah, literature. I read The Road.
And I read
Justin.
I Am Legend.
Whoa, I forgot about that actually, right until the second. Well, anyways,
Goodbye, Prometheus.
okay. All right.